Time is really interesting after cocktails. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Friday, June 16th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Sleeper. 14 games on today's slate. Big time Friday slate. I wish that they would just reward us with 100K up top on DraftKings, but unfortunately they do not. But I'll just have to take it 50K and be satisfied with that. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Twitter handles are below our bodies. Adam, what's going on?
I don't really know what you're complaining about. If you just take spots 1 through 10, it's 100K.
I should just take 1 through 150, right? That's the goal.
I don't see why not. That just reminded me. I saw it in my phone. Like I was going through my phone and just like happened to see the screenshot that I had sent where I'm sure I was mocking the person. But it was somebody back like years ago, basically saying that like nobody is actually that good at DFS until you start seeing somebody just take like the top 150 spots. Like you can dominate sports like that. Like, so there's no reason you can't do it in DFS.
I remember when that happened and it became like a point of like a talking point on the shows when I forget how it came up like that, but that particular thought process like permeated everything and everybody was talking about it. I don't know how like that tweet became the one, but
yeah, it was like it was either, taking 1 through 150 or like I've never seen anybody win the large tournament every day in a week. So until then, nobody's that good.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, no kidding. It's just like that's such a staggering. You're just basically putting up a giant flag being like, yo, I don't understand math at all.
Right.
Because that's what it is. Like there's no, can you imagine the equivalent of being able to do that? Picture what that looks like in, let's just say, NBA skill set. That's like Michael Jordan crossed with Michael Jordan on like the 9 millionth degree.
It's like saying Steph Curry's not a good 3-point shooter until he makes every three he takes in an entire season.
Just it'd be like those old McDonald's commercials where like Larry Bird and shit are like off the rafters, off the ceiling, right. Nothing but net. And they're just throwing that shit up and it just immediately goes in. Hey, is my father-in-law calling me right now? Rob, I love you. If you're watching this show right now, hi, I cannot answer, unfortunately. I hope everything's going all right. You're driving back from Pennsylvania. If you're driving through Tamaqua right now, don't stop. Keep driving. 14 games, man. Fun slate, I guess.
MJ times MJ to the power of 99.
I wish I had any idea what you just said, but because of this stupid call that just came in, every word I saw your mouth moving. I know that you were talking. None of those words got to me from an audio perspective.
I was just laughing and reading. Oh my God, lol's chat.
Oh yeah, MJ times MJ to the 99th percent. Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. My crunch done running? It is. We got some stuff to talk about. You ready to just dive into this slate? I've got no more filibustering for the beginning of this one.
Yeah, I'm good.
And we do have a shit ton to talk about.
Not really.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of teams we could just cross off pretty quickly.
Yeah, a lot of what we have to talk about is like, yeah, whatever, it's fine.
Oh, well, we're leading it off with a doozy because it is the team that I have the most of right now.
That's surprising.
The Washington Nationals, 3.8 run implied total, taking on the Miami Marlins, which I really wish were still the Florida Marlins. It's so annoying. I don't like the alliteration of that one.
I just want the Trevor jerseys back.
It's a great color, right?
And the fish.
Did they get rid of the fish?
I mean, now the logo is
no longer
M. It's the multicolor M with like a fish like over it. But okay. the mid 90s like teal with the marlin.
Yeah, it was great. I thought you were trying to tell me that they like don't identify as Marlins any longer.
Yeah.
Trevor Williams going for the Nats. Sandy Alcantara going for the Marlins. 6% owned Alcantara, 2% owned Williams. This is going to give you the opportunity to say his name a bit, but at 9,100 against the Nats, what do you want to do with our boy Sandy?
He's one of many good but difficult to get to pitchers on this slate that isn't getting much ownership. If you're building lineups and you find that you're getting to 10, 15% of Alcantara at 5% owned, there's nothing wrong with that. He's a good pitcher. He hasn't been as good this year. 4.2 xFIP, only striking out 20.5% of hitters. He does have a tough strikeout matchup here, but also a weak Washington offense. They have an 84 WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. The only thing saving them from being the worst offense against right-handed pitching is the presence of the Detroit Tigers. So it's a good spot overall, but there is some solid pitching on this slate. I understand why the ownership is low. The flip side, though, is a couple of the most popular pitchers on this slate are in absolutely brutal matchups. 2 of the top 3 owned pitchers on DraftKings are facing 2 of the top 3 teams in offense in the major league. So I'm not saying those guys are bad plays, but I am saying this is a really interesting slate where you have some talented pitchers not getting ownership because that ownership is being funneled to guys facing really good offenses. So don't mind, taking some shots at Alcantara, but there's a lot of pitchers that are going to be like that on this slate.
Yeah, I have 16% right now, and I would be happy for it to come in like that, given his current ownership. Just the spot, his ability to go deep into a game, that all works for me, even with a limited-ish strikeout rate. For
also minor concerns, he just hasn't been throwing as many pitches lately.
Yeah, it scares me a little bit.
The reason it's not overly concerning is he still went 7 innings in each of his last 2, 6 1/3 the one before that, 6 flat the one before that, but he hasn't reached 100 pitches in 4 straight starts.
Yeah, he's definitely been worse this year for sure.
Yeah, he's been worse, and I guess my concern is that it goes hand in hand. Is Miami looking at this saying, look, we ran this guy into the ground last year. We were letting him go complete games every chance he got. And now he's taking a step back this year. So we're going to cut it back. This last start, he went 7 innings, gave up 1 earned run against the White Sox through 86 pitches. Last year, he's coming out at least for the 8th, if not the 9th.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's certainly coming back out at that time. Yeah. I hope he gets back to that, because I'll have 2 times the field at a minimum. Yeah. No Trevor Williams, right? He just isn't good.
No, I mean, the Marlins aren't good, but neither is Trevor Williams.
But the Marlins are good for today. 6th in top stack, 3rd in top value. They are 4th in our stack score, 4th in ownership. And I have a bit more than that. And now I'm going to have to dial this one back a little bit based on the amount of Marlins that I have right now. But on the road against Trevor Williams, I like every bit of this spot. How do you feel about the ownership coming into Miami for today?
Yeah, I mean, I think they look good as well. 7.5% projected ownership, 5.5% chance of being the top stack, but also a 7% chance of being the top value stack. So we have them 2nd in stack score. I know you had them as the 2nd best stack this morning. Trevor Williams typically is much better against righties. That's been the case for a few years. But the thing that is different this year, he's still striking righties out at a much higher clip than lefties, but he's giving up a lot of power to both sides. And so Miami's not a very good offense overall, but they do have some power in this lineup. No Garrett Cooper today is a bit of a downgrade. He strikes out a lot, but he does have north of a 200 expected ISO against right-handed pitching. If you're replacing that with Yuli Gurriel, kind of the opposite, where Gurriel doesn't strike out, but also doesn't have as much power. So I think it's a little bit of a DFS downgrade, but Soler, I think, still a really good play. Tons of power there. Jesus Sanchez at 2,800 batting cleanup is a strong value play. He has plenty of power. So from a value standpoint and just having a good matchup standpoint, it is still a pretty good spot for the Marlins.
Ricky birdied his first hole.
What'd you say?
Ricky birdied his first hole.
I don't care anymore. Mito sucks.
Care a little bit for me, man. I would appreciate it.
I mean, I have a lot of Ricky in Showdown, I guess.
Fair. Yeah, I have a lot of the Marlins, if we want to go that direction. They are my most exposed stack right now. I think it's just this combination of facing Trevor Williams and being essentially free, except for the guys that shouldn't be free. I'm happy to pay up. And by pay up, $4,500 for a leadoff Arias, $4,900 for Soler. Paying up is relative at that point, but the rest of these guys are just free.
And also keep in mind, over the last 3 years, Nat Stadium, 9th in home run park factor, 8% better than league average. Miami Stadium, 17% worse than league average, tied for 3rd worst home run park factor. This is a massive upgrade for hitting home runs, and then they're getting Trevor Williams on top of it.
106 park factor to righties per Fangraphs from last year, 105 to lefties, 97 park factor to runs, which when you look at that, it's just okay, everything else goes away, but man, oh man, do they give up the DOMs.
Yeah. Over the last 3 seasons, using Baseball Savant's metrics, 103 park factor overall, 108 for home runs.
There we go. Yeah. Looks good. So yeah, I'm getting to quite a bit of the Marlins in particular. Like the guys that are getting 1% and 2% owned, I'm getting like 9-10% of these guys. I've got the full Marlins lineup. I'm going big time Miami right out of the gate. So suck it, Sean B. We're not going to the Nats, right?
I don't think so. I mean, Alcantara hasn't been as good as last year, but he's still good. The Nats are kind of always playable as a cheap offense, but there's enough of that on this slate that I don't think you really get there. Keibert Ruiz, I mentioned him yesterday, and he came through late. I think he's fine. Like, he's probably the best play from this team, just a cheap catcher that has some power. But, you can make a case for Dickerson or Garcia as well being the best plays, but overall, not nearly as interested in Washington.
The Boston Red Sox actually rank the game, I guess.
Miami, I guess Alcantara. I don't know. It's the Marlins bats one. The rest of it is kind of like, yeah, whatever. I guess it's okay in tournaments. Like, obviously Alcantara is my second in terms of what I'm confident in, but he's also $9,100. So I don't know. Miami won. The rest of it is just like
Trevor Williams last.
But even that, I mean, you can make the case. Like, he's 5,800 facing a below average offense. But yeah, I guess he's last. I guess, especially because you have Wu at 5,400. It's not like you.
I mean, you can just go to like Brady Singer at 6,100, and I don't think that those guys are all that different. Not that like that's exciting or anything.
Right, he's similar to Singer, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
But like you have Brian Wu down there, who is just far and away the best play in that range.
Roberto Soto says, I was going to play the Marlins until Josh said he liked them. I mean, every single team that I say that I like, you should assume that I'm wrong, because I'm way more likely to be wrong than right every time that happens. The moment I say that I like the Marlins, the likelihood that they're not the stack is like 80% of the time. So you're not taking a giant stance there.
Yeah. 5.5% chance of being the top stack. So you can join Sean V tomorrow in the 95% of the time that Josh is wrong.
Like I said, I'm higher on the Marlins. I have it at 7.5. Like, that is a marginal difference in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, now you're on 92.5%.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you want to say like, okay, if you get the top two, you're in good shape. We're still talking like 85%. Right.
Yeah, there just needs to be like a rule in chat where if you're going to say XYZ isn't a good play or a good stack, you have to give a specific team that is better than them.
Yeah. Or you should just immediately lose 5 minutes of being in chat at that point. If you want to go out on a limb and say this is the team, like, at least you're taking a stance there.
Right.
Picking the opposite side is like, oh, congratulations. You just were like, hey, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. Fucking people. Red Sox and Yankees, 5.1 run implied total for the Sox, 4.7 for the Yankees. Tanner Houck and Domingo Germán. No ownership going to either pitcher. And I don't think it should be.
No, I don't either. I was really surprised. One of the biggest surprises, I guess, when I did the strategy show this morning and saw seeing stuff for the first time was just seeing the pricing on Tanner Houck and Domingo Germán in this spot.
Germán in particular.
Yeah. I actually kind of wiped my computer screen this morning. I was like, that can't say 9,900. So like, it's not that either of them are bad pitchers, but tough matchup for Germán against Boston in Fenway. Better spot for Houck against the Yankees since there's no Judge, but still not an easy spot. Looks like an offense game to me.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page here. I have some of the Red Sox. We have the Yankees 4th in top stack. We have the Red Sox 5th. Basically own the same, 4.5%. Which team do you prefer? I prefer the Red Sox side, so I'm curious where you're going.
So this is kind of, I would rather get to the Red Sox. I think I probably get to the Yankees more just because of the pricing. Okay. Both of these pitchers have had their share of issues with left-handed power. That is more of a problem here for Germán since you have Verdugo, Devers, Yoshida, and Casas in the lineup. The first three in particular, Devers and Yoshida in particular, but Verdugo and Casas both fine as well. But they're also not cheap. I mean, Verdugo's 4,900, Devers is 5,800, Yoshida's 5,600, Casas is cheap. For the Yankees, you don't have as many good left-handed bats, but you have a $2,700 Jake Bauers leading off with multi-position eligibility. You have Anthony Rizzo at only $4K. And this isn't to say you can't play Stanton, Torres, Donaldson. Obviously, if you're stacking the Yankees, go for it. But Bauers and Rizzo stand out as underpriced left-handed bats that have some power against a pitcher in Tanner Houck that gives it up to lefties. So I do think it's likely I get to the Yankees more than the Red Sox, even though the Red Sox are the team that I'd be happier getting to because I like the names more.
Yeah, I have the Red Sox as quite a bit more likely to be a top stack than the Yankees in this spot, which honestly surprised me when I first saw it.
But is that top
um,
stack? Are you saying top stack as far as like most runs scored, or most fantasy points scored, or top stack as far as like most likely to be optimal? Because that's two different things.
fantasy points scored.
Okay, yeah, Boston should be higher than Yankees.
Sure. Um, I should add the optimal rates there too, just for a talking point moving forward. So I have that, so might as well add it in as something that we could touch on. That said, like it's not like I have a ton of the Red Sox. I just happen to be getting to them over the Yankees at this point. I don't have a giant preference between either side of it. Neither one of them is making up a ton of value or a ton of volume rather. Like 14% Devers is the most I have of anybody in this game. And like to me, that's not even like a real thing. It's Rafael Devers. If you have 14% of Devers, I don't really care what's going on the opposite side. It's just him at third base. So that works for me. I don't have any like individual priorities here that really stand out.
Right. I think that makes sense. Like I can tell you the plays I like the most. It's Bowers and Rizzo from the Yankees side. It's Devers and Yoshida from the Red Sox side. But I don't necessarily think any of those are the best plays at their positions because Devers, third base is not the strongest, but it's not weak and he's expensive. Yoshida's an outfielder. There's always a million good outfield plays. And then you have Rizzo and Bowers, first base and outfield, where again, there's just a million good plays.
Rank the game.
Yankees, Red Sox, Houck, Erman.
Red Sox, Yankees, Houck, Erman. I think we can be on this stance of offense, pitching.
Yeah. To clarify, just because I don't want it to come across as like this is a great spot for these offenses.
Yeah.
These are two quality pitchers. Tanner Houck this year, or at least solid enough pitchers. Tanner Houck this year has a sub 100 expected ISO and a 274 expected WOBA allowed to right-handed hitters. So again, don't ignore the best hitters on this team like Stanton if you're stacking the Yankees, but pretty shitty spot for him. And as far as Domingo Germán goes, 140 expected ISO to righties, 25% K percentage there. Even lefties only have a 329 expected WOBA. Like he's a good pitcher. Red Sox just also have good hitters.
Mets and Cardinals, 4.3 run implied total for the Mets, 4.4 for the Cards. Tyler McGill and Miles Mikolas, who, by the way, I feel like pitches every single day. Him and Oviedo, I feel like I typed their names into my sheet like permanently.
Yeah, there was another one that was pitching recently that I was like, I swear this guy pitched each of the last 3 days, but I can't remember who it was.
I feel like I've had Mikolas way more frequently than I'm supposed to over the past 3 weeks. Either way, 1% ownership to McGill, 1% ownership to Mikolas. I'm proud of myself for not having Mikolas today. I guess maybe because they're playing the Mets. I do have 5% McGill at 6,300, but I don't think that neither one of these guys are a priority.
No, not at all. There's nothing that you're recommending from these guys. 20.5% strikeout percentage against right-handed pitching for the Mets this year with a 99 WRC plus on their active roster since Alonso is out. St. Louis, 20.9% K percentage, 108 WRC plus. Neither pitcher is very good at getting strikeouts on their own, so it's not like they're bringing them with them. They're both fine if they just randomly land in a lineup here or there, but no reason that I actually want either guy.
Yeah, like I can't explain why I have 5% of Tyler McGill and no one should care that I do.
Is the reason you have 5%.
Same reason I have 6% Schuster and 2%,
right?
JP Sears and whatever. Like it pops up from time to time. They happen to be in the pool. Offense wise, I really don't have much of this one either. 2% ownership going to the Mets, 3% ownership going to the Cards. They are 13th and 15th in stack score. Cardinals ranking a little bit higher. Mets 19th in top stack ability right now. I don't really like this is one of those games, and you see this a lot. As long as there's not like a weird pricing thing, these teams that show up on bigger slates that have like 4.3, 4, 5, run 0.45, that area of run total is always just one of those situations where you look at it and you're like, okay, I hope this entire game is quiet.
Yeah, exactly. And this one, like sometimes you'll get those, like yesterday, it was different because it was a 7-gamer, but you'll get those slates where it's like, nothing looks great because it's Shohei Ohtani against a really good offense and Nathan Eovaldi against really good offense. But those are like still interesting in tournaments because you're getting these massive upside plays facing off against each other. Here, you're getting like a league average Mets offense against an average pitcher. a slightly above average Cardinals offense against a below average pitcher. But like, there's nothing that stands, and it's, you know, in a bad park for power. So there's just nothing that stands out as particularly exciting. McGill has had the biggest, I think, vulnerability for any of the pitchers is that McGill has allowed a 189 expected ISO to righties this year. So, I mean, that pushes you towards like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Contreras, if he figures out how to hit, Jordan Walker, if he figures out how to hit. But this park is also one of the worst in baseball for home runs. So not a lot to like.
Ricky with another birdie. Get it done,
Sunday,
brother.
Just Sunday's just going to be brutal. You already know it.
I don't want to talk about it, man, because there's a decent chance that I don't make it out of Sunday if it keeps going like this, one way or the other.
Yeah, it's going to be like Ricky Birdie for like the first two holes, and then it's going to be like bogey, par, snowman.
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, he pulled a Vandeveld, tried to hit out of the water. Yeah. All of a sudden, he blew it. It's just like, oh, we just got word that Josh is hanging from his balcony. Who's the best play in this game?
Goldie.
Probably, right? Nimmo?
Yeah, I'll say, like, the Mets are cheap. So I mentioned Goldschmidt and Arenado, like, as I think the best individual plays. I think the Mets are a better stack just because they do have quality hitters for cheap. I mean, you can get unowned Nimmo, Marte, McNeil, Lindor, Beatty, and the only guy over 4K is Lindor.
I'm fine with it. Oh, I hate the Mets so much. I got nothing else for this game, though. That's an easy one to cross off. So we will talk about the schedule for the rest of the day. And that's very simple. One, before we even talk about the schedule, you got to hit the like button. By the way, I feel like, I don't mean this just in general, but we really just don't get a lot of people in here at 4:45. I think most people are just really expecting this show to start at 5 o'clock.
I mean, includes me if Jordan doesn't text me at 4:42.
True. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about all of it, but we got to get more people in here early. We got to let everybody know 4:45 when we got 10 plus games. Anyway, thanks for being here. Hit the like button if you can. Let's see if we can get that number up over 100. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next, taking you into 7 o'clock and closing out your work week. But the big thing that we should talk about right now, for right this moment right now, we got a lot of big things to talk about. This moment is BetMGM, because if you click the link in the description of this video, you get two things when you sign up at BetMGM. One, you get up to $1,000 paid back in bet credits after your first bet. An incredible deal. You also get 1 month of Stochastic Plus Platinum for free. That covers every sport we have. So you're going to get projections and ownership and boom bust, top pitchers, top batters, top stacks, all of those sorts of things. But it's not just MLB. It was NHL, NBA. They don't count. PGA, MMA, NASCAR, F1, the nerd sports where you play video games. I can't remember all of them at this point in time, but you guys get the drift. The big one, though, is the $1,000 back in bet credits at BetMGM. You see it on the screen right now. My recommendation is this, and I know that this is going to sound like a staggering amount of money, but as long as you deposit at least $10, this is going to work. I think you should deposit as much as you can get your hands on at BetMGM, because when you place your first bet, if it wins, you just move forward. All that money is yours. It's in your account. Everything is great. If it loses, they give you that bet amount back in bet credit. So you basically get a second shot at your first bet. The fact that you can just get it right out of the gate is massive. My recommendation is to take an underdog, something pretty sizable. Use our Odds Shopper package or our Bet Pro package. Find the bet that you think looks best, that you're lined up on, and move yourself forward at BetMGM. You have an opportunity to really create a lot of value for yourself. To me, this is the best deal that you can get because of what you get back as a credit. You get a shot to lay down $1,000 on something, and if it wins, you are not beholden to anything. Worst case scenario, you got to work back through those credits. This is a spot that you should take advantage of if you're in a legal betting state. I'm going to be dangerously close to taking advantage of this one. Hopefully in 6 months, at worst case, a year. Shout out to the state of North Carolina.
Years. Just get it in your head now.
I don't think that it can be per everything that I've read. But
okay.
what legality means and what options I have are two different things, I think. But I think they have to have it in place at that point. But they can just be like, well, you can only go to the Cherokee Casino in North Carolina, and that's your spot. So that's not going to help me as much. But we're getting there, and that's going to be a good time. You guys should sign up at BetMGM right now if you can. We go to game 4. Cool. Great. I'm sick and tired of talking about my Atlanta Braves, who have a 6.2 run implied total against the 4.3 implied total Rockies, Jared Schuster and Dinelson Lamet. The best pitcher in this game is certainly Dinelson Lamet, but the Braves have a massive implied total in this one. I've been getting to Atlanta in an aggressive manner, as has the field over the past few days, including yesterday, where the ownership on Atlanta was pretty staggering for baseball, something that we don't normally see. Do you want to go to Schuster or Lamet? I can't imagine you're going to Lamet, so I guess talk to me about Schuster.
Yeah, I mean, if you land on some Schuster, it's fine. I'm not going out of my way to get to him. There's a much better pay down option elsewhere that we'll get to. And, but, it's still the Rockies, 4-run implied total, give or take. If you're playing a bunch of lineups, you probably get the sum of him, but 2% ownership, 4.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 9% chance of being a top 2 value. Not going out of my way to get there. Lamet not getting any ownership. It is kind of tempting at 5K, but I don't think you need it on this slate. This matchup in general is just really weird to me. I think the Braves are a very high upside spot. I think they're one of the best stacks. I don't understand the 6.5 implied run total against a pitcher who has never been bad when he's healthy.
Nope. I don't get it either. It's like, at first I was just like, oh shit, did they move this series to Colorado?
I mean, they did bring their bullpen with them, which kind of is the same thing, but
6.2. Like what is this run total if they're in not Atlanta?
7.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like what are we going to see? Like if they play again in 2 weeks in Colorado and it's like a warm week, is it 7.5? Like where do we draw the line here? But that said, like, how do you want to handle this? Because like they're clearly a great stack today. There's no, we're talking about ownership at this point, right? Because like ownership agnostic, they're as good as it gets.
Right. Because even if like I could think that they should be 5.5. And that's still like the best on the slate.
Right.
So yeah, they look good. And it is the bullpen that's driving this up. This goes back to that conversation that we've had before about talking about the bullpen, factoring in the bullpen. The Rockies bullpen has the 4th worst xFIP in baseball. They are bad. Yeah. You can get add-on runs. This is not solely a Dinelson Lamet implied run total. It's a very high upside spot overall for the Braves because you do have a bad bullpen here. And you have a pitcher in Lamet that he had really good stuff when he came up with the Padres. He was hurt for several years, but at no point has he like been bad, but there's still that uncertainty of like, all right, exactly what is he going to be at this point in 2023. So it is a very high upside spot. The ownership is somewhat concerning, but with it being a 14 game slate, that does get muted at least a little bit. I talked about it with Neil this morning though. I'm kind of wondering, we saw it happen last year where you would constantly have the second and third best team like pull more ownership than the best team because they were always projected to be under-owned. Now it's kind of like it's shifted back to where, the field is sharp, the field's adjusted, the field is kind of playing all of the top teams at the appropriate amount. So now you're seeing it shift back to where like people are just jamming in the number 1 team and they're just coming in way more popular than, they're expected to be. So that's something to pay attention to. I don't really have a great answer for how to deal with it from an actionability standpoint, but it is just kind of an interesting, I think, shift to pay attention to. But regardless, it is a high upside spot here. Acuna is clearly one of the best plays on the slate. Albies is one of the best second base plays. Harris is cheap. Everybody else is projected for less than 10% ownership, which is pretty nice. I like Matt Olson quite a bit if you can find the salary for him at 6,300. But also going back to my point about Lamet, even this season, he's only thrown like 400 to 500 pitches, 150 expected ISO, 331 expected WOBA to lefties, with a 21.5% K percentage, 24.5% K percentage, 114 expected ISO, 340 expected WOBA to righties. It's not that he's unhittable or anything, but he is certainly better than your typical pitcher that has a 6.5 implied run total going against them.
I was surprised to see it just because
it just feels like it should be like 5.8 or something.
Yeah, I agree.
I almost bet the under, but I was just like, I don't trust Schuster enough. Like, this could just so easily be a 6-5 win for the Rockies.
Do you want to get to the Rockies at all in this spot? 9th in top stack, 11th in top value. They're 7th in stack score, 15th in ownership. I don't agree with where they're coming in there, but they are unowned.
Yeah, I mean, I like the lack of ownership and the fact that Schuster hasn't been great so far. He projects as somebody that is completely serviceable right now in the major leagues, but not very good. The problem becomes this is probably more of a team where like I either want to be full stacking or at least mini stacking, because I have a really hard time pointing to what hitters I actually want to play individually. Through a very limited sample, Schuster's actually given up more power to lefties. Probably doesn't mean anything. The only lefty we have in the lineup today is Nolan Jones. So I would just say don't skip Nolan Jones if you're stacking the Rockies. But still, I think, Profar, Diaz, Grichuk, probably your best bets. Tovar's a cheap shortstop hitting second. That's not the end of the world, but it's really difficult to come up with bats you actually like from the Rockies.
We're ranking this game. Braves are first. Is Schuster second? Or is
I think it's Braves 1, Rockies 2, Schuster 3, Lamet 4.
Okay. So weird because like just on talent alone, Lamet is 2.
Lamet is underpriced at 5K.
Yeah.
He also threw 90 something pitches last game. If this were like, I kind of wish he was on the late slate, and I'm kind of glad he's not. If you throw him on like the 4 or 5 game late slate, whatever it is, he would be a really interesting play.
Yeah. He's good. He's just straight up good.
Right. Even now, like he's probably like average. He used to be.
What is the total on this one if anybody else is throwing for the Rockies today?
Well, I mean, Connor Siebold is Cy Young, so
I guess they only set lines once they hear what our exposures are going to be. Because if it's Siebold, it doesn't matter because he's going to go out there and sling a gem. I got nothing else here for Braves Rockies.
Well, and to answer your question too, like I do still think there's a lot of uncertainty around Lamet just because he has had so many injuries and you don't really know what he is at this point. But so far he's been solid and he used to be legitimately good. So I still think, like the line probably skews high. One, I mean, obviously because of the bullpen, but also there is just a chance that Lamet isn't actually that good anymore. But to your point, like he's actually talented, always has been.
Yeah. Rangers and Blue Jays, very anxious to get your thoughts here. Martin Perez going for Texas, 4.1 run implied total. Kevin Gausman going for Toronto, 4.9 run implied total. 25% ownership coming into Kevin Gausman at 11,200. Please talk me through this one against Texas. I do not have him.
I don't get it. So I don't want this to come off as like I think Gausman's a bad play or I don't understand why people would want to play him. He's really, really good. He is the best pitcher pitching today. I don't think you can really argue that. 33.2% K percentage this year, only walking 6% of guys. 2.73 xFIP is the best mark on the slate by a wide margin. The strikeout percentage is 5 points higher than anybody on the slate that's made more than a couple starts this year. He is really, really, really good. The problem I have is twofold. One, he's $11,200. So you're paying the salary that Kevin Gausman has earned this season. But he's facing the Rangers. So you're not getting any sort of Rangers discount here. This is a spot where typically you would not be getting much ownership to Gausman, and it would become a really interesting tournament spot where you're like, oh, okay, well, nobody's going to play the best pitcher on the slate, or, he's going to be 10% owned or whatever. I'll play him and hope that he just does what he normally does. But you have 1/4 of the field going to him here at 11-2. He needs a very, very specific outcome to be somebody that you have to have in your lineup at $11,200. And on a slate with 27 other pitchers, there are going to be other good pitching performances. Like whether they are the guys that we expect them to be or not, who knows? But there are going to be other good pitching performances. So you are paying an absolute premium for a guy that 1/4 of the field is rostering against the third best offense in baseball. Again, I'm not trying to like talk anybody off of him. I might get a lot of him. I don't know. I haven't made lineups, but at least looking at this, I don't really want to be there.
Neither do I. Like I said, I have 5%. And it's not that I don't think he's good or like anything along those lines. But if you're going to spend all of that salary, I don't think you're getting anything that makes it like really obvious that you should be doing that. Not on a day like today with 13 other games. Not against the Texas Rangers. Who
the other thing that stands out to me too is it's just weird. Is again, not that Vegas lines are, the end all be all, because they're not just for the starting pitcher or anything like that. It's not even like the Rangers have a really low implied run total. They have like a 4.1 implied run total. Normally I feel a little bit more or a little bit less confident, I guess, in my take that I think he's over-owned for his price. When I look and it's like, oh, well, Vegas has the Rangers with a 2.9 run total. It's like, okay, like, obviously he's going to look great, but you're paying 11-2 for a guy against a team with an implied run total north of 4 that's getting 25% ownership when you have a million other pitchers to choose from.
Yeah, I don't.
On the show this morning, I said I thought the ownership was wrong, but after looking at projections across the industry, I don't think he's going to be popular.
He is. When I ran my stuff, let's see, where did I have him? I had him 11% optimal. Even if we want to say that that's skewing like a little bit low, it still makes me feel like the ownership's coming in a tad high.
Right. Yeah.
Not that I think our ownership is wrong by any means. Like, I think we're right here.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first, looked at the slate this morning, I was like, there's no chance in hell that people are just jamming in Kevin Gausman at that price and completely ignoring McClanahan and Gallen, who have similar range of outcomes. But looking at projections, they're going to. But yeah, I mean, we have Gausman with a 21% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher. Cool. 3% chance of being a top 2 value. Now, you can make the argument for sure that it's a 14-game slate. There's going to be value bats everywhere, and it's really easy to afford Gausman. Also, and this might be the biggest contributing factor, Brian Wu is $5,400. So it's you can play, it makes Gausman's price tag relatively less important because you can play those and spend those two together, spend less than $17K on pitching, do whatever you want with bats. So I think that's probably the biggest factor in driving up Gausman's ownership, but it's still a really concerning spot.
We can't go to Rangers bats, right?
I don't think so. If this were a smaller slate, I'd be more interested. As is, if you get Ranger stacks here and there, like they're a really good offense, but there's so many good spots on this slate, or at least better spots.
How do you feel about Blue Jays bats here against Martin Perez, who I'm quite confident we're not rostering? Been giving up a little bit more power than he normally does. This is a team that I'm getting to.
I like the Jays quite a bit here. Don't know, again, I haven't made lineups yet, but I think the spot sets up nicely. Martin Perez, like you said, he's giving up more power this year, particularly to righties. 177 expected ISO, 170 actual, only striking out 16%, 352 expected WOBA. You have tons of right-handed power in this lineup. The only lefty in here is Varsho hitting 8th. So, 1 through 7, you have Springer, Merrifield, Bichette, Guerrero, Kirk, Chapman, Jansen. Obviously on DraftKings, you can only play one of Kirk or Jansen, but they're both cheap and high upside catching options. Chapman is cheap at 4,300. Merrifield's hitting second with MPE at 3,600. The only guys in this lineup that are actually expensive are Springer at 4,900, Bichette and Guerrero at 5,200 and 5,100. So all of that sets up pretty nicely for them. And then you look at the Rangers Park, and for right-handed power, for right-handed bats rather, over the last 3 years, which I don't remember how long it's been open, I think 3 years, but either the last 3 years or since it's opened, whichever is shorter, this park is 9th in home run park factor for righties, 7% better than league average. I think it sets up nicely for Toronto.
You and me both. 23 5-man stacks for me right now. I am over the field. Happy to go that way. How do you want to rank this game?
I think it's Jays, Gausman, Rangers, Perez. Obviously, you could make a strong case that it's Gausman, Toronto, Rangers, Perez.
Works for me. Let's go to Brewers and Pirates. 4.5 run implied total for the Brew Crew, 4.2 for the Pilots. Julio Teheran, who there's added him to the list of guys that I feel like are pitching every single day now. Rich Hill going for the Pirates. No ownership coming into Teheran. 13% ownership coming into Dick Mountain. You want to go there for 6,700?
I don't totally get it. Like I think he's fine. There's a lot of strikeouts in the Brewers lineup. I don't think he's that different than Jared Schuster. Yeah, so same. That's one spot where I don't really know why there's this ownership gap. So yeah, if you land there, sure, but there's also plenty in that range that's lower owned when they should probably all be similar. You have Schuster there, you have JP Sears there, you have somebody else that I'm blanking on that's in that price range. Who?
JP France.
Yeah, France.
Both he's JPs. One with periods in the name, one without.
Oh yeah, you're right. There was somebody else earlier that I was thinking of, but I don't know.
McGill, Walker. Yeah,
Taijuan Walker is getting 6%. Explain to me why Taijuan Walker would be 6% owned against Oakland while Rich Hill is more than double that. Also, I think it was SMP this morning mentioned it. Rich Hill threw 119 pitches last game. there's nothing you can do with that. If you wanted to view it as a positive, the Pirates are willing to let his arm fall off, so he gets some extra DFS upside. But pitchers coming off of 120 pitches at the age of 43 probably are a little bit more likely to pitch like shit the next day or next start.
Best of luck on this one, Dick Mountain. I got 2%. Do you like the Pirates as much as me by any chance?
So there's like 3 spots on this slate that my brain just does not match up with projections. One of them, well, I guess there's 4. So one is sort of Gossman, but that one I at least get. One is how the hell Atlanta has a 6.5 implied run total here. But that one, again, you can explain by the bullpen. The second one, we haven't gotten to the third one yet, but the second one is why this game has an 8.5 run total. I did bet the over on this, so shutouts for both teams incoming probably. But like, I guess I kind of get it from like an average outcome standpoint. I think the ceiling on this game is so much higher than your typical 8.5 game.
Yeah.
For one, this park is good for power. Both sides. 111 home run park factor over the last 3 years for both righties and lefties in this park. 2, you have a 43-year-old Rich Hill facing a team full of right-handed bats. The only lefty in the Brewers lineup today is Christian Yelich. Obviously, he's good, but he's the only lefty in the lineup. Righties this year against Hill have a 240 expected ISO and a 377 expected WOBA in a park that plays up power. Yeah, like it's not the best hitters, but Contreras looks great. Adames looks great. Owen Miller's fine. Luis Urias is fine. Anderson's fine. I was hoping Joey Wiemer was going to be higher in the order, but at least this saves, like, you're just going to get him at low ownership now. He's 2,900 with power. So that's, the Brewer side and the Rich Hill side. And then you have Julio Teheran, who has made a handful of starts now since reappearing from wherever the hell he's been the last 3 years, not playing baseball. His power numbers are fine. He hasn't been, elite or anything, but he hasn't given up a lot. 149 expected ISO to righties, 154 to lefties. That's fine. But 17% strikeout percentage to righties, 19% to lefties. And the assumption here just has to be that he's not good. Like, he worked his way out of baseball. It would be one thing, like, it's always tough when guys like this come back, whether it's from the minor leagues or whatever he was doing. But, with the technology now, guys can make improvements if they are determined to and be totally different. The fact he's not striking guys out makes me think that he probably this magically not giving up runs probably doesn't last very long, because I'm pretty sure that if he did just like go to some lab and say fix me as a pitcher, they didn't say let's see how to make it so the ball is always being put in play and your fielders have to make plays. Like, guys come back with much higher strikeout rates is the thing that typically stands out when somebody makes substantial improvements, because that's what you're trying to do. So probably going to fall off of a cliff sooner than later. And you have a good combination of value and upside from these Pirates bats. Reynolds is 5K, no real problem with that. Marcano is dirt cheap, probably leading off at shortstop. Sawinski's got power, he's cheap. Hayes has a high ceiling. McCutchen's good. Santana's cheap. I like this game offensively. Again, I haven't made lineups. I hope I get a lot of this game.
You don't think that Julio Teheran is trying to maintain an 18% K rate in his return?
Right. Yeah, I mean, what was his starting point if he walked into like Driveline and was like, yo, guys, I just want to work out here for 2 years, get my strikeout percentage as high as it can be. And they're like, here you go, 18%.
Makes no sense to me. I like the Pirates a lot. I'm 2x the field. I've got a bunch of their 5-mans. I don't have as much of the Brewers. I wouldn't mind if I did get to the Brewers. I just don't have them grading out as well, but I do think they look equally as interesting in this spot. I just think that Rich Hill is like an actual normal-ish pitcher in general, whereas Julio Teheran isn't.
So I'm kind of the opposite, though, because we know what Rich Hill is, and that's a guy that is decent but does get hit hard by righties. We still don't know what Teheran is. He might just be really tough, like really deceptive and hard to see, and guys just aren't going to hit him. But yeah, and a couple things. Josh Gilliam said the Brewers are bottom 3 against left-handed pitching. Like, yeah, they don't have the best lineup, but also they've faced a lot of lefties that are better than Rich Hill. And as far as Teheran going to some lab, no, I was just saying, like, you do see guys sort of come back from nowhere and be much better because they do have the ability to just go get all their mechanics fixed and all of that. But it typically is reflected in strikeout percentage, not in, soft contact.
Anything else you want to touch on in this game?
Nope.
After we talk about this one, I basically don't have another offense for the rest of the show that matters to me. So this should be really good. Twins and Tigers, 4.8 run implied total for the Twins, 3.1 for the Tigers. Joe Ryan and Tyler Alexander. We will quickly skip Tyler Alexander and the Tigers. I am quite confident we don't need to say a word about either one of those.
Alexander's not even starting.
Who's starting now?
William Vest is opening. I don't know if that means Alexander's following him or not.
That's not a real name. William Vest. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it looks like, so DraftKings has Alexander listed as the probable long reliever. I haven't seen that confirmed or not. I assume it's the case.
None of it matters. Joe Ryan, 29% owned at 10,600 today. I have slightly more than that of Joe Ryan. This is as good of a strikeout matchup as you're going to find. How do you want to handle Joe Ryan, who I have so differently projected than we do? It is staggering.
I have a much easier time explaining 29% ownership going to Joe Ryan than I do, for sure, Kevin Gausman, or the 36% coming to you, Darvish. Darvish.
This is the best spot, right? Like, this is the best starter on today's slate matchup. Everything come together.
It's either him or Wu. I think either him or Wu is the best pitching option.
Okay.
Probably Wu, just because
two different things here.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so Joe Ryan, one, he's really good. Two, he's got a good matchup against the Tigers. 3 flat implied run total. Tigers 78 WRC plus against right-handed pitching this year. 24.5% strikeout percentage. They are towards the top of the league in strikeouts against righties. They are the worst in the league in WRC plus. Joe Ryan himself is very good. 27% K percentage, 3.72 xFIP, only walking 5% of hitters. Then if you dig a little bit more into Ryan's splits, he's very good at limiting production to both sides of the plate. 230 expected WOBA to lefties, 266 to righties, but he's only struck lefties out 22% of the time. He has struck out 32% of the right-handed hitters he has faced this year. The Tigers do have 3 lefties in their top 5 with McKinstry, Carpenter, and Maton, but those are the only 3 lefties in the lineup. You have a lineup with 6 right-handed hitters that cannot hit against a really good pitcher that strikes out nearly 1/3 of the righties he faces. It's baseball. Shit happens, but it is so much easier to explain why Joe Ryan is a top play today than why Kevin Gausman is a top play.
I have him very, very, very clearly as the top projected pitcher for today. I'm going to have all of the Joe Ryan in this spot. I don't want to change it at all. To me, this is the best guy that you can pay up for today. I don't see him and Kevin Gausman as comparable given the matchup that we're getting today.
I mean, I still think they are. Like, we have Gausman by 1.5 DraftKings points. Gausman is better than Joe Ryan in terms of pitching. Like, yes, the matchup is worse, but his strikeout percentage this year is 5 full points more than it's 6 points higher than Joe Ryan. His xFIP is a full run lower than Joe Ryan. Kevin Gausman is a legit one of the best pitchers in baseball, ace. Joe Ryan is a very good pitcher.
Yeah. The Rangers implied total is also a full run higher than the Tigers run total for today. Like, I'm not trying to take Kevin Gausman for the rest of the year, but I have a hard time thinking that Joe Ryan is a worse option today than Kevin Gausman.
I mean, the thing with Gausman is he's just that good. Like, his last difficult start, so like he got lit up by Minnesota last time out, but 2 starts ago, he faced the Astros. He struck out 13 Astros in 7 innings.
Oh, like, he can go out there and do that, and it doesn't matter who he's facing.
Right. Like, I kind of think he has to be, by default, the highest projected pitcher just because he's that much better than everybody else. But Ryan's ability and his matchup certainly makes it close, at least.
What do you want to do with the Twins bats? Because I'm just as interested in them as I am in Joe Ryan. We aren't in the top stack tool. I am way higher on the Minnesota bats in this spot. 3.5% aggregate ownership for Minnesota. Tyler Alexander or whatever, the sweater vest, the Old Navy Tech vest, whoever the hell is pitching for the Tigers. Whatever is going out there to get on the mound is dog shit for Detroit. I want Minnesota.
Yeah, they're also not expensive. Detroit's bullpen actually middle of the pack this year, which is interesting and kind of surprising. But it sets up nicely. Assuming Alexander ends up being the long guy, he does give up power to basically everybody going back to the start of last season. The big thing, though, is just you have a 5 implied run total for the Twins, and the most expensive hitter on the team is Buxton at 5K. Then you have Correa at 4,300 hitting second. You have Gallo hitting seventh at 4,100. Obviously, both of those guys have massive ceilings. Everybody else is $3,400 Royce Lewis or less. Yeah. This team is free. They have a 5-run total. Now, the value component, again, isn't as important today because you do have one of the best actual pitchers also is priced at $5,400. But yeah, they're cheap. You can do whatever you want with them. If you're trying to say, hey, I don't want to play a 25% owned guy in his third major league appearance, I would rather go Kevin Gausman and Joe Ryan. You can do it with Minnesota. So yeah, they look really good.
Seems like this Jack character in chat is letting us know that he'll never have billions. Buxton is horrible.
That's a hell of a take.
Yeah. Jack will never have billions or millions or thousands. You should change your name to Jack Hundreds.
Buxton is horrible. Like, how do you even get to that thought process?
You like bang your mom or your girl or something? Like, that's the only way you get there, right? Like, you got to have like a personal vendetta against this dude because he just isn't. Anyway, we're going to get past that. And we're going to hit the like button. We're up to 533 people in the house, 116 likes. Hit that thumbs up if you can.
In before Buxton goes 0 for 4 in a baseball game, and that becomes proof he's horrible.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to happen now. Now I'm going to have to get away from the Twins. We got to talk about Sleeper. They are the sponsor of this show. I wish I had like a really fun free square. I didn't see a free square for Sleeper today. We had a good one yesterday for Garrett Cole. I think it was Garrett Cole. But we had a good free square yesterday. We don't have that today, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't sign up for Sleeper. You get $100 first match deposit bonus. That is just, no matter what deal we're talking about for these shows, when you can put in money and then get it matched, you should just be doing that. Like, you're clear. If you're watching this, if you're willing to sign up for these places, these deals should not get skipped. That's a really decent chunk of change to help you start a bankroll at a site. And this one's going to be a little bit different. We talk about pick'em sites pretty regularly, but we'll talk about it and we'll say like, oh, it's, 8 fantasy points over under, and it's even action on both sides. Very, very different at Sleeper. We have dynamic payouts here. So if this is a spot where, let's just say the under would be minus 600 as a sports bet, then maybe that multiplier is lower. And maybe if the opposite side is like plus 250, you're getting 3x or 4x on the multiplier that you're taking. That is a very, very different mechanism than what you're seeing at every other pick'em site that exists. Those dynamic payouts are what you should be paying attention to. There is a link in the description of this video that will allow you to sign up at Sleeper. And it's not just these pick'em contests that they're running. They're running like full on fantasy leagues if that's what you're looking for. Me personally, I'm recommending Sleeper because you can get additional information for these Sleeper plays through some of the additional stuff that we have either at Stochastic or at OddsShopper. So please, guys, you see the banner at the top of the screen. Click the link in the description right now. Sign up at Sleeper. I want to scratch my nose. My nose is so itchy right now. I don't know what it is. Talking makes my nose itch. It probably makes me look like such a cokehead.
I was going to say that could have just been what it was.
No, never in my life. That's just too much work.
Me neither. Not because it's too much work. I just don't think I would stop.
I thought you were going to say you can't afford it right now.
I mean that too, but
yeah, not the one. You need to find a 18-year-old kid slinging Adderall outside of a community college campus. Astros and Reds, 4.8 run implied total for Houston, 3.9 for the Reds. The first of JP's, JP France going here. Andrew Abbott going for the Reds. 14% owner. Wait, is Abbott the mustache guy? I feel like I only watch him pitch for the Reds now at this point, too. It doesn't matter. 14% ownership coming into France against the Reds seems about right. I don't have much to say here about the pitching.
Yeah, France was 20% earlier. Now he's 14. That seems more in line with where he probably should be. He's been completely mediocre this year, which I don't mean as like an insult or anything. He's just kind of there. Decent matchup, 3.7 implied run total for Cincinnati, but only 7K is what stands out here about France. If you're going to this price range, he looks like one of your better options. I do think a 14% owned France is more appealing than a 14% owned Rich Hill. 20.5% strikeout percentage this year. 20.5% strikeout percentage, 4.4 xFIP, 1.5 home runs per 9. Not a ton of power for the Reds. Obviously you can, Steer can do some damage, McLean, Stevenson, but no De La Cruz in the lineup makes France look better as well. So that's nice. He's just sort of, he's a price point play. He's perfectly fine. Abbott is at that same price point, hasn't given up a run through his first 2 major league starts, but work cut out for him against Houston. Don't really think I need to get to him.
I've watched both of his starts at this point. Every single pitch, I've seen him go the whole way for both of them. So it feels like he's everywhere, always. Astros bats, 9th in our top stack tool, 9th in ownership. I have a couple 5-man stacks here, nothing crazy, but I wouldn't mind getting to Houston. I don't really see any priorities in this game in general.
No, neither do I. Just kind of a middle-of-the-road stack for Houston, I think. We have them with a 4% chance of being the top stack, 4% owned. Cool. No Yordan Alvarez certainly weakens the lineup a bit. It does make them a little bit cheaper. Jose Abreu seems to have figured out how to hit the baseball far again, so that's nice. But yeah, I think just kind of middle of the pack. They do have a 4.8 implied run total, which is relatively high on this slate. But Abbott seems like a good pitcher also.
Birdie for Ricky to start.
3 in a row?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hilarious. He's at 11 under. Good God. Anyway, rank the game, I guess.
France, Houston, Cincy, Abbott, Cincy. Probably Cincy, Abbott. I think it's closer now that De La Cruz isn't playing.
The Kansas City Ship My Money's taking on the Angels. 4.4 run implied total for the Royals, 5.1 for the Angels. Brady Singer and Patrick, don't call me Tom Sandoval, going in this one. Neither one of these guys getting any ownership. Do you want to roster pitchers? Tom, you don't know who. Oh my God, are you living under a rock? You don't know who Tom Sandoval is?
If I do, I'm not aware of it.
You're not involved in the Scandival?
Oh, the first thing that just popped up was
Vanderpump guy?
I don't know who that is.
What he did to Ariana, just disgraceful. Now, how much Brady Singer are you getting to today?
Probably not much. He's not horrible, but he's not been nearly as good this year as I expected him to be. That actually goes for both of these pitchers. He's striking out about 20% of hitters, 4.5 xFIP. He's another one that falls into that category of like, is he a $6,100 pitcher? No, but I also don't think I'm going to need to play him today. He is facing a team with a 5.2 implied run total. Really tough matchup here. Angels are running out a good-looking lineup too. So yeah, I don't really see getting the Singer. Sandoval certainly got the better matchup, but he's also 7,300. He's not striking guys out this year. Again, I thought he was going to be really good this year, but only a 17% K percentage, 4.5 xFIP. He's, I guess, another one in that 7K range where, like, if you wanted to say you're playing him at no ownership instead of France at 15% or Hill at 15, cool. But, it is a good matchup, but just the strikeout stuff hasn't been there. I have a hard time getting to either pitcher.
We got a decent amount of ownership coming into both teams, where the Angels are 2nd in aggregate ownership. The Royals are 7th. Multiple guys into the double digits. Which side of this one do you prefer, and why is it the Royals?
It is the Angels.
What happened?
Did
you sort your lineups incorrectly? I've been here before where like the 9 hitters, the 1 hitter and stuff. So
no, I'm hoping that my Royals addiction goes away with Vinny Pasquantino's shoulder injury. Also Salvador Perez not in the lineup today. So really the only selling point today for Kansas City is that they are really, really cheap. And this is a pretty tough slate for that to be a selling point. So again, I haven't made lineups. There is still a chance KC is like my highest owned team, but I don't think they will be. It's hard to make a real good case for why they look good. Sandoval hasn't gotten a lot of strikeouts this year, but he's also not giving up power. And normally the reason that I get to them is that you have, a high upside catcher in Perez, a high upside shortstop in Witt, and then you've got 3 cheap high upside guys with Prado, Pasquantino, and Melendez. No Pasquantino, no Perez. So we're down to 3 of the 5 things. And then also Prado and Melendez are also both left-handed. Sandoval's only struck out 13% of lefties this year, but expected ISO of 0.58 against them. So not exactly a spot I'm looking to get there. But I do really like the Angels side. 5.2 implied run total. Nice mix of value and pay up guys. Ohtani and Trout, 6,400 and 6K on DraftKings. But everybody else is 4,300 or less. Everybody other than Drury is 3,700 or less. Singer has had left-handed power issues in particular this year. 261 expected ISO, 393 expected WOBA. Shohei Ohtani is absolutely one of the best hitting plays on the slate. Mickey Moniak leading off at 3,200 looks really good. Matt Tice is a catcher at 2,900, looks good. Jared Walsh is cheap at 2,600. And then from the right side, Singer, 161 expected ISO, 352 expected WOBA. So not as bad as he's been to lefties, but still hasn't been great. And you have Mike Trout, Brandon Drury, Hunter Renfroe. I really like the Angels here. It's also
Rank the game.
Casey.
Rank the game.
Angels, Royals, I guess Singer, just because he's free, and then Sandoval.
Okay. Diamondbacks and Guardians, 4.2 run implied total for the D-backs, 3.7 for the Guardians. Zach Gallen and Tristan McKenzie. I have talked Tristan McKenzie into the good games that he has had in the past. Not going to be today. I think Adam's about to talk us into Zach Gallen, and I get it. 5% owned, 10,200. Compare him to other guys that are expensive.
Yeah, so I will say I don't know that I actually get a lot, but I do think he's a very good tournament play at 5% owned. He has struggled a bit recently, which is a little concerning since we don't have like a really long track record of him being good. But overall this year, he's been very good. He has struck out 27% of hitters. To put that in context, it's about the same as Joe Ryan. 3.29 xFIP is a half run better than Joe Ryan. He has a very tough strikeout matchup against Cleveland, but it's also a very weak offense. So Ryan has the better matchup, but it's still a overall good one for run prevention for Gallen. 3.7 implied run total for the Guardians. I just don't think Gallen's getting quite enough respect when you look at how the ownership is being distributed to those top four guys. You have Gausman pulling 27, Ryan pulling 28.5, and then McClanahan only pulling 6.5 at 11K. Gallen, the cheapest of the group, only pulling 5. Just seems like, he should be a little bit more popular. I did bet the over 5.5 strikeouts at, I think, plus 125 earlier. It was in my Bet Pro video as well. So at least, if I don't get to him in DFS, at least hopefully I can get some money back on the strikeout prop. But his ownership just stands out to me. This was the third of the 3 spots I mentioned that didn't make a ton of sense. I understand why he's not as popular as Ryan. I even understand why he's not as popular as Gausman, but I think it should be closer than it is. Either way, not likely to get to the Cleveland side, even if I don't get to Gallen.
You want any McKenzie?
Kinda. He's fine. So the thing with McKenzie, I think, is it's a really awkward price point. We kind of mentioned it with Alcantara. We're going to talk about it when we get to Michael Kopech at 9,300. But on this slate, the pricing on Woo really messes up this slate, right? Because think about what your lineups are going to look like where you would get to Tristan McKenzie. Some of them you have like, a 5-3 stack or a 5-2 stack where you love all your hitters. You're happy with what you got to. You have $8,600 left. You just play Tristan McKenzie. But in most of those lineups where you would play Tristan McKenzie, you're either going to be able to just like drop a hitter to somebody else who's not that much worse and improve to one of those top 4 guys, or you're going to say, oh, well, I don't really like this, $2,500 hitter. Let me just turn McKenzie into Woo and have 3K to do whatever the hell I want in the rest of my lineup. So most lineups are just going to put you in a position where you can upgrade by either just paying up or paying down. So I think that's why it's going to be tough to get a lot of him. But, the upside's there. We saw him make pretty substantial adjustments last year. He cut his walk rate in half while only sacrificing a little bit of a strikeout percentage, went from a 27% K rate to about 25, while going from an 11 to 12% walk percentage down to about 6. It's also a tough matchup against Arizona. So in addition to the awkward price, it is a tough matchup. So good pitcher, probably won't get much.
17th and 18th in ownership for the Guardians and Diamondbacks. We're not going to hitters, right?
I don't think so. If I did, it would be Arizona, but I don't see it.
If we're ranking the pitchers here, it's Gallen, McKenzie, and then whatever offense you want to pick.
I think it's Gallen. It's either Gallen, McKenzie, Diamondbacks, Guardians, or I think you could make the case it's Gallen, Diamondbacks, McKenzie, Guardians. But I think Gallen is clearly 1 and the Guardians are clearly 4.
Alrighty.
McKenzie and the Diamondbacks are like the same to me, where it's like, well, they're not getting any ownership. They're in a tough spot, but they are good. So they could just give you a really good game.
We got hit with a super chat from Windy City a little bit earlier. 2v2 Betts, Tucker, or Albies Acuna. It's Albies Acuna for me, but it's baseball too. So they're both good.
Yeah, they're both good. I mean, you have the correlation with the second one. So I'm going to just prefer that one.
And I think that's actually just
it probably projects better also. Yeah, it probably projects better also, but you also have the correlation.
Padres and Rays are in a coin.
By the way, it is crazy to me that a game between Tristan McKenzie and Zach Gallen in Arizona has a run total half a run lower than a game between Julio Teheran and Rich Hill in Miller Park, or whatever, American Family Field, whatever it is now.
I don't know. Is it American Family Field? What a lame name. I'll take your word for it. Laffy would know. He knows all those dumb things for no reason.
American Family Field.
Okay. 3.9 run implied total for the Pods, 3.9 for the Rays, Yu Darvish and Shane McClanahan. Let's start this way. Any chance you're going to the Padres or Rays bats here?
I would love to get to the Rays. I don't know that I will, but they are like the perfect tournament play.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if I'll get there or not, but and if I'm playing limited lineups, I definitely wouldn't get there. If I'm playing 150, I do like the idea of getting there just because they're the best offense in baseball facing a 33% owned pitcher. I understand why Darvish is 33% owned, but best offense in baseball, 1/3 of the field is using the guy against them. Second highest ISO against right-handed pitching. Like pretty easy to see how there's a path to just winning tournaments right there.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the Darvish ownership. 36% owned, 8,100. Like that's just the incorrect price here. I mean, I guess he's like sort of priced for facing the Rays, but it's just not right.
Right. Yeah. It's just it's a price tag that is probably too cheap for the Rays. And at worst, you're just saying like the only thing that you're worried about with Darvish is the matchup. And DraftKings just said like, okay, well, what if I just make the price 20% lower than it should be? So it kind of alleviates those concerns. So like again, I totally get Darvish's ownership. Gausman's the better pitcher, but I actually think Darvish's ownership makes more sense to me just because he's 8,100. I guess the counterpoint to that is the same one I made earlier, where Gausman's price doesn't really matter because of Brian Wu, but yeah, like he shouldn't be $8,100. He's only allowing about 1 home run per 9 this inning or this year. That's something that's plagued him in the past, but he seems to have gotten under control. 7.8% walk percentage. Again, not walking guys. Still striking out 26%, 3.81 xFIP. It's just too cheap of a price tag. The ownership does concern me. And I think, in terms of just chances of success versus ownership, he is going over owned, but not a huge deal in baseball since you're never building the optimal lineup. So yeah, good play there. Scary matchup for sure, but
yeah,
good play.
Why is Kevin Gausman 4.5 times more owned than Shane McClanahan?
Because he's better, but also like I get where you're going. He should be like 2-1 probably.
Yeah, like these. I mean, it's not like the Rangers and the Padres are all that different. These run totals are both close to each other. I mean, the run totals are very close to each other now. Like they're both they're limited run totals for today.
Right. They're not. Yeah, and they're not that different in terms of talent. They are very different in terms of which team has actually hit the ball this year.
Yeah, for sure. But like, we're looking at a very comparable game, comparable salaries, comparable pitchers. 27 to 6.5 is extreme today.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think Gausman is clearly the better play.
Agreed.
Because this just goes back to Shane McClanahan's really good. Gausman is on another level. 27.8% K percentage from McClanahan is the second highest on the slate. Still like 5 points behind Gausman. 3.62 xFIP is nearly a full run worse than Gausman. But, he is walk rate is, 50% higher than Gausman's. He is still a very, very good pitcher. He's similar to Gallen for me, where I don't know how much I'll get to because I can, it's a 14-game slate, so ownership isn't going to matter that much. I'll have no issue finding low owned bats, but he shouldn't just be 6% owned given how good he is.
Yeah. If we're ranking this game, is it just sort of like Darvish and then any real other piece of this is just like, I guess.
I think it's Darvish, then McClanahan, then Tampa, then San Diego. But yeah, it's kind of, I mean, San Diego is not like you said, they're a very high upside offense too. I prefer the idea of getting to Tampa against a 33% owned Darvish, but it's kind of a comparable play there. And also just to, again, because I don't want it to sound like we're like shitting on Gausman because he's a good play and he's a great pitcher. The gap between Ryan and McClanahan's too big too.
Yeah, agreed.
And we both, obviously talked up Ryan a ton. 29 to 6, like that's also a really big gap.
A's and Phillies, 3.9 run implied total for the A's, 4.5 for the Phillies. JP Sears and Taijuan Walker, both 7% owned. Probably about right for both guys. I don't have a lot of like fun verbiage for two 7K pitchers that are like just generally uninteresting. Yeah,
I'd be a lot more interested if Wu didn't exist. It's a good matchup for Walker. He's just like the epitome of an average pitcher. JP Sears does have a 25% K percentage against right-handed hitters. He's also allowed a 240 expected ISO. So pretty big boom or bust spot when you have Turner, Castellanos, Realmuto, Alec Baum on the other side. Obviously Schwarber and Harper can still do damage also. But this park kind of, the park limits my interest in the Philly bats, and the price on Woo limits my interest in Sears. Put this game in Philly and take Woo off the slate, and I'm just playing a bunch of Sears and then playing the Phillies and other lineups. But here, I just don't really get too much of any of it.
The A's are a great value and a generally terrible stack. The Phillies are a decent stack, but a pretty terrible value. I don't think you really need like anything from this game as a priority.
No, I mean, again, like I like it. Sears has better strikeout stuff than a $6,800 price tag, but there's just going to be so many better ways to build your lineup. I like the matchup in terms of upside for the Phillies. The problem is just there's such a high chance that even if they are crushing Sears, that you're just getting flyouts to the warning track.
Most I have of anybody in this game is Real Muto. I'll take that.
What'd you say?
I said most I have of anybody in this game is 5% Real Muto, and that sounds about right.
Obviously, a really good play. I like Castellanos at 4,600 quite a bit, but there's no shortage of outfielders. The Coliseum for right-handed home runs over the last 3 years is tied with Miami for second worst. The only park worse has been Pittsburgh.
Rank the game.
Phillies, Walker, Sears, A's. The A's have kind of turned into my new Kansas City where I'm playing them a lot, but I don't think this is a slate where I will because, again, there's just so much other value.
2 games to go. We're at the top of the hour. Hit that like button. We'll try to be as concise as possible. Not a ton that we need to talk about. It's sort of just obvious. Mariners and White Sox going here. Brian Woo and Michael Kopech going in this one. 5,400 for Woo. 9,300 for Kopech, getting 12% ownership. What are you doing with Brian Woo, who's pulling 23% ownership? One of the most owned guys on today's slate.
I assume he's going to be my highest owned pitcher.
Okay. Talk to me about why.
He's just incredibly mispriced. He's 5,400, and I've said a million times that for any competent starting pitcher, that's too cheap. This guy is more than competent, or at least very, very likely to be. He's thrown 6 2/3 innings in the majors. There's nothing to take away from that other than he didn't get lit up right out of the gate. He struck out 33% of hitters for those 6 innings. His stuff is played in the majors, but 9 starts at Double-A this year, 44 innings pitched, struck out 34% of hitters. He projects, the bat has him projected for a 23.5% strikeout percentage. I've said it a lot. Usually the bat is low on prospects. They're actually a little bit higher than the other FanGraph systems. 4.4 FIP. ATC has a 22.5% K percentage, 4.2 FIP. This is just in no way a $5,400 pitcher. He's in one of the best pitchers parks in baseball. He's facing a White Sox team that has struggled all year long. They have started hitting recently, which is at least worth noting just because they do have talent. They just have been awful this year. So maybe they're getting healthy. Maybe they're banged up. They're getting healthy, whatever. But it's just so hard for a $5,400 pitcher that has really good strikeout stuff to be bad. Again, like he can just he could give up a bunch of runs and it doesn't matter. But like he can give up 3 or 4 runs and still score like 18 DraftKings points at 5,400 just from strikeouts. So it just sets up as such a good spot. I assume that I just get a lot of lineups where it's Woo and one of the pay up guys, and then I'm just playing whatever bats I want.
You getting to Kopech at 9,300?
Really awkward price point. Same issue, I think, as McKenzie. He has seen a big uptick in strikeouts recently, which I do think is interesting because there was speculation he was tipping pitches earlier in the year. And in his last 5 starts, he has 9 strikeouts twice, 10 strikeouts twice, 6 strikeouts in his most recent, coinciding basically going back to that speculation. So it is interesting to me that a very talented pitcher who was struggling for unknown reasons suddenly seems to have figured it out around the same time people were saying he was tipping pitches. So if you get to him, I think the upside's there. I do think he's a good play. The Mariners are an average offense in a good pitcher's park. But again, I think in a lot of those lineups, it's just going to be like, oh, well, can I just play Joe Ryan instead?
I wish we had more time, but we are long past the time. I don't have Woo. So that should be fun. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're on FanGraphs. You can see why. Every single projection system is not projecting him like he is worth a shit for today. So that's why that's happening.
We're looking at different FanGraphs projection systems.
I mean, I have them right here. Hold on. Wait, maybe we are. Where did the tab go? Got it. 24% K rate via depth charts, 23.5 for the bat, 22.5 for ATC. Like,
Yeah. So what part of a $5,400 pitcher with above average strikeout stuff isn't good for you?
I don't need to go that far down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't like most of the other pitching on the slate. That's the thing.
I mean, I'm a Darvish and higher at this point, and that seems to be working, and that's 8,100. So there's just a chasm there. I get it. He doesn't project the way that his minor leagues. If he's pitching like his minor league stats look like, holy shit, 5,400 is wildly wrong. But I mean, that's just wild.
Yeah, obviously.
I don't know how you want to say this guy's name. It's either George Sheehan or Emmett Sheehan, but he is starting for the Dodgers. Sean Manaea, the long man for the Giants. Neither guy getting any ownership. I don't even know if Sheehan's in the
he's not, or he would be.
And we're not playing Manaea as a long man, correct?
No real need to, I don't think.
The Giants are unowned. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. If you ever want to get to Dodgers bats, to me, this is a cross-off game.
Dodgers are interesting just because Manaea gives up so much power to both sides of the plate. They're expensive, but you have a $5,400 pitcher. So you can get there if you want to. I'm sure you can make some very good looking Yu Darvish plus Brian Wu Dodger stacks with incredible one-offs. So yeah, like if you get to the Dodgers, great. The argument for the Giants would be that this is Emmett Sheehan's first time pitching above AA. He looks good. He struck out 41% of hitters at AA this year. He projects to be perfectly fine in the majors, but never know with somebody's major league debut, and the Giants are a good offense. But outside of that, I think I'm just interested in the Dodgers.
Favorite stacks?
Angels, Toronto, I guess Atlanta, even though I don't totally know why.
Favorite pitchers?
Ryan, Wu, I guess Darvish.
Thank you guys for joining us. Sleeper is the sponsor. Go check them out. MLB Live Before Luck coming up next. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Have some fun. Don't go anywhere. Stay on this stream and hit the like button on your way out. Well, on our way out the door. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's that time once again to induct all of you fine people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Do the bragging for you, and of course, give out a whole lot of free Stochastic Plus Platinum subscriptions, a full month, $120 value, and all you got to do to get your name up here to get that free sub is, well, download the Stochastic Avatar at stochastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF. Get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum and get inducted into the Hall of Fame. As always, let's dive into this one. First, we start with our boy, Peter Hanley. He's back in the mix. Not 100K, but I will take it. Peter, dude, this guy went on an insane run a little while back, but he's back. First out of $15,000, $20,000 in the Wednesday MLB squeeze. Nice to see you back here, Peter. And how about Albatross? I don't know how to change my avatar, though. That's okay. I like paying for stuff anyway. $130,000. Got to throw him up here, even without the avatar. Shouting out Stochastic Hall of Fame. We'll take that any day of the week. And Schaefer, my first serious attempt using the new Uber Stochastic tool, the MLB Sims tool / DFS God mode last night on both sites. Count me optimistically impressed. Can I have the honorary shout out? That's Stochastic HOA. Yeah, damn right, man. Second, $4,000 for Schaefer. Taking down the batter's eye, $5,000 or second place, and battery, $2,000 there. So a huge night for Schaefer using the new Sims tool, which has only been out for a week now. We're very happy to see the results, of course. I think 209 DFS is as well. Got a couple takedowns thanks to the crew. And the new Sims tool coming in clutch. There we go. First and seconds across the board for 209 DFS. Let's see, did the tool do any more damage in its first week? Barry Watts does not qualify, do not care. Just please don't tell anybody about this new Sims tool. 5,000, 2,000, 750, and 150 for Barry. Congrats, dude. Even though it doesn't qualify, you know we're throwing it up here. And Travis Scott, I don't need a free month of Stochastic. I just love hearing my name shouted out when I ship tournaments. Shout out to the Sims tool. Damn, 4 in a row. First place in the chin music for Travis. Coming in hot this week. Mitchell Kipp, Stochastic tools for the win. I love this, man. We've been talking about Sleeper. They got the dynamic payout system, the dynamic pricing, where you can up to 100x on these payouts in these cards. He 51x'd and 14x'd in 2 of them, 10 for 500 and 10 in the 139. Figured we'd throw a little sleeper action up here for Mitchell, taking advantage of that sweet dynamic pricing payouts they have. And JJ, UFC 60K mini max at Stochastic HOF, $2,000 right there for JJ. And Maui, it ain't much, but it's honest work. Thanks. It's pretty nice though, man. 12K beanball, MLB, $500 second place for Maui. And I know it's a lower entry contest, so that's a massive ROI. Ryan Slaughterback, shout out to Greg Ehrenberg and the whole Stochastic crew. Turned 6 in the 4,000. Chopped first, but hopefully still worthy of the Hall of Fame. Ready to rip some more lineups for the U.S. Open this week. LFG, first out of 7, the 800, 4,000 for Ryan. And Millstone just won 150 from a 5-cent game using the Stochastic MLB tools. They paid for themselves already. You love to see it. Username is L Moeller and Millstone79. Congrats, dude. That's awesome. 5 cents in the 150. And the professor, man, a few words at Stochastic HOF. Look at that. First place out of 52,000 in the shot, 100K. It's a chop, right? But still, not bad. Just a big night across the board. $13 into 1,156. Got a few more here. Brody, after a ton of close calls, here's another one. At least this one is close enough to qualify for the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Thanks to the boys for teaching me the ways. Third place, 750 in the 30K mini max. And our boy Stay Odd, putting a little something neat together here. Branding it, but also has the Stochastic avatar, $870 in the 15K pull-up jumper. And then we finish it out with Mr. Nasty Time Gaming. What does that mean? Got me a little takedown last night. Thanks for the excellent info you guys put out. 1K first place in the MLB 10K single entry chin music. Remember, all you got to do to get involved, download the avatar, stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF. And win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here. Crowning achievement for everybody. Gather the family around and tell them, hey, I'm about to be inducted. It's the best day of my life. We'll see you back here next week.
What is going on, guys? It is time for another MLB Live Before Lock. We've got Neil back from softball. So as per usual, we're going to have to get the Friday update on how well he did. He's got a little bit of a wry smile, so I think his team might have won. But we'll touch on that in a second. As you guys come in, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and shout out to Sleeper, who is sponsoring our show today. We'll be talking more about them as we go, but 100x payouts on the parlay cards they have over at Sleeper. You're not going to find that anywhere else. Definitely something of interest. And also, when you sign up using the link we have below, up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit over at Sleeper. So definitely go check them out, and they are sponsoring the show. Now, Neil, Friday, which means that we are a day removed from the big softball game. How did you pitch yesterday?
So we faced Club Atletico Gemelos, who is the second-ranked team in the league. Their run differential of 133-88. The team played them. Our first game of the season, I was out. I was doing a live stream for us, so I was not able to attend that game. We lost in that game. We won last night. I was the winning pitcher, Greg. I only gave up 25 runs. We got 26. Just crushed it. So
you gave up 25 runs, but 26,
and got the win.
How much did you contribute to the offense?
I batted well. I was 4 for 5 from the field. So that's generally not a good batter, but I've had multi-hit games in all except for one game this year where I went 1 for 3.
Look at you. All singles, or were there any dongs involved?
There were only singles. I have one extra base hit. I got one double this year, but otherwise it's all singles for me.
So how do you put 26 runs up on the board and you only got up to the plate 5 times?
I think we have 11 people on our team.
Okay.
So like we have so you can play 10 in the field in our league, and then we have one, rotating from the bench. So I'm also I bet second to last in the order.
Okay. All right. Impressive showing once again.
Thank you.
For Neil Orfield, 4 for 5 with all singles, a real Luis Ariz of the men's softball league there, isn't he?
And the winning pitcher. So you could kind of call me like Shohei Ohtani in a way.
Yeah. You only gave up 25 runs, which was one better than the other team. Is this league co-ed? I feel like I should have asked you this.
No, it's no.
Okay.
Men's league.
All right. Look at you. Dominating. Any strikeouts yesterday?
I don't believe so. I don't believe I had any strikeouts.
All right. Another strong showing from Neil Orfield, doing the program proud over on the softball fields. And when does the playoffs start, by the way?
We don't have playoffs, unfortunately. The season goes
just
through the end of July.
For all of the teams?
For all of the teams. As far as I know, it could be just my team so bad that we've never been to the playoffs. So I just don't know that there are playoffs, but I don't think there are playoffs in this league.
So how do you know if you won?
You look at the standings, I think is the only way.
There's not like a trophy or anything?
I don't think so. I wouldn't know. We've never won. We've never won the league. We're not going to win this year either. We're
Jordan,
4-4.
Do you believe he skips work for this?
I mean, I was so upset that I had to miss the first game of the season. Somebody else had to pitch. They need me, Greg. I'm the ace.
Well, how many runs did they give up the first time you guys played this team?
Fewer than 25. I don't know how many, but I know we lost.
All right, Neil leading his team to victory. We've got MLB DFS to talk about Friday, though. We always have to make sure to catch up on what's going on with Neil. But I did say right at the top, based on your facial reaction, I had a feeling you would win.
Yeah, you could tell. I know. I couldn't hide it. I was too excited.
So something else that happened yesterday is we were able to pay back Ace of Spade. He showed up. He was in chat, and I said, "Hold up, don't leave the super chat. I'm going to answer your question right here." So we're square with him. We were able to get that settled. But we've got a DK Tiers question for today, though, from Jose Morales. This is a different DK Tiers question versus the typical one we get from Ace. Well, not a different question, just a different person leaving the super chat from Jose Morales here. So, Neil, why don't you go pull up Josh's Twitter account and see what you can find in terms of what Josh has projected. I've got some tiers lineups over here. And one thing that's going to remain true today that was the same yesterday when we're talking about DK Tiers, you can make Brave stacks today in DK Tiers. And that is something that I think that you are going to want to do. I've got all my lineups built out in front of me here for tiers. Neil, do you have Josh's projections pulled up if you did them today?
I sure do. And guys, I don't know who is in and out of the lineup. So if I say somebody and they're not in the lineup, just let me know and I'll go to the next one on the board.
No. Most importantly, make fun of Neil, especially you, right. Sean V. Sean V, let him know he doesn't know dick about baseball and tell him that he's an idiot. And then everything's been settled.
And then I'll correct it.
Tier one.
I'm an idiot.
Tier one, I like getting to Ronald Acuna, exact same guy I had in tier one yesterday. I think the Braves are the preeminent stack of the day. You got the option to stack them up in tiers as well as in classic contests, obviously. Ronald Acuna in tier one, I don't know how you go anywhere else. That's my guy in tier one.
Yeah, Josh has Ronald Acuna being the leader in 35.5% in tier one.
Tier two, we don't have any Braves to get to in tier two. Unfortunately, we do have a couple of standouts. The two that were closest to me were Mike Trout and Rafael Devers. I'm going to lean towards Mike Trout, although starting to get a little bit concerned. He's been one of my favorite players for a very long time. Maybe some signs of slippage this year from Mike Trout, but either way, he's my guy here in tier two.
Yep. Josh has Rafael Devers number one over Mike Trout just by a couple percent.
Yeah, like I said, it was very close for me between the two. I lean towards Trout. Tier three, we can get more Braves correlation. So give me Austin Riley to correlate with Ronald Acuna in tier one and build out more Braves stacks. What does Josh have there?
Josh has Masataka Yoshida number one, followed by Austin Riley. So a lot of Red Sox and Braves already.
All right. So yeah, that's another way you could also build out some Red Sox stacks in here. Tier four. By the way, if you're interested in getting to the Red Sox here, you could also get to Adam Duvall in tier four. I think it makes sense if you have Devers in tier two and if you had Yoshida in tier three. For tier four, though, it's hard for me because Bo Bichette and Vlad are such better players than Adam Duvall that I'm more inclined to go to a Bichette or Vlad. But what does Josh have in this tier?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, as you said, Josh does have Devers and Yoshida. He has Duvall is the last for him in tier four with just an 11% chance. He has Brian Reynolds actually on top at 18%.
All right. Tier 5. Tier 5, I'm going to go with Ozzy Albies to correlate with the other Braves I'm getting to. You could also go with Alex Verdugo here, though, to correlate some of the Red Sox together.
Josh does have Jorge Soler leading in tier 5, but I'm going to go off the board and say I'm going with Byron Buxton instead.
All right. We got Neil going rogue here. And now tier 6. So tier 6, we don't have Red Sox to go to. We don't have Braves to go to. So I view this as kind of a toss-up tier. I did get to Altuve the most of anybody, though.
Yeah, Josh got to Luis Arias number 1, Altuve number 2.
All right. All right. So by the way, something I'm very bitter about that Eric isn't here today is that yesterday I was pretty adamant how much I like the Tigers as a single entry stack and how much I like getting to them overweight to the field. And Eric was so distraught by me liking the Tigers. He started crying on the show. He was, this is the worst call he's ever heard of his entire life. There's no way I should do it. He was despondent. And then what ends up happening last night? The Tigers at no ownership were the highest scoring team on the entire slate. Played them in single entry. I had guys like Matt Vierling was like 0.3% on. I think I was the only one who played him last night. And I don't get to rub it in Eric's face today because he's not here.
I'm sorry. I'm a Twins fan too, so you can rub it in my face a little bit, but I'm not enough of a Twins fan to cry about it. I'm this on the morning show. I said, "Oh, the Twins put up 8 runs last night. They must have been pretty good." And then I was corrected. It was actually the Tigers beat the Twins 8-4. I forgot that I misread it, and then I saw it again. I was like, "Oh shit, the Tigers are actually winning." But then I forgot the second part, and
yeah. It was so the one thing that was a little annoying about last night's slate, and then we'll start talking about tonight, is that I played the Tigers in single entry. They put up 8 runs. So I finished fairly well. I think I came in like 37th in the $121, something like that. But the Braves were all like 50% owned, and they also put up 8 runs. So to me, it's like, but like, look, my lineup is so much lower owned. It's just the same as it was a little tilting. But either way, I was happy with the results that I had. We've got a super chat here from DFS Dope Strategies. By the way, if anybody has questions for us in the Discord, one of the perks of being a Stochastic Plus Platinum member, at me. We can answer some of those questions over the course of the show. You could at me, not like Josh actually left our Discord yesterday, so you're never able to at Josh on shows, but me, you have access to all the time. DFS Dope Strategies wants to know, who are the chalkiest stacks today? So let me refresh the ownership in our top stacks tool. It is the Braves, but like not by like, it's not like yesterday where the Braves were projected for like way more ownership than everybody else or anything like that. But 2 teams that are standing out above everybody else. And by the way, I don't know whether you're asking about DraftKings or about FanDuel. DFS Dope Strategy, so I'll just give it to you for both. But on DraftKings, the most popular stack is the Los Angeles Angels going up against Brady Singer. The second most popular stack is the Atlanta Braves against Dinos Lamet. Those are the only 2 teams projected for north of 10% ownership. Then you've got the Toronto Blue Jays against Martin Perez at 8.3% ownership. But it's a big slate, and the ownership is kind of spread out. There's not any kind of real crazy chalk, but it's the Angels, the Braves. Those are the 2 teams on DraftKings that are projected for double-digit ownership. And then same if you go over to FanDuel, the Braves actually projected for 16.4% ownership as a team, and then 10.2% for the Angels. Next most popular team is the Miami Marlins at 7.9%. But the 2 teams, to answer your question, like who are the chalky stacks today, it is the Braves and it is the Angels. Same on both DraftKings and FanDuel. But FanDuel, the Braves are super popular at 16% on a slate of this size. So I hope that answers your question, DFS Dope Strategies. If there was something else that you wanted to know, like top leverage stack or anything, throw that out in the YouTube chat. But I believe that does answer the question that you had for this slate. But let's start talking about some of the pitchers here, Neil. And it's a slate where if you look at pitcher, we do have some good options, but the ownership's pretty spread out, right? Yu Darvish projected for 35% ownership. He is the only pitcher on the entire slate as far as DraftKings is concerned that's projected for north of 30% ownership. So it's going to be spread out at pitcher in terms of the ownership. But starting with Yu Darvish at 35.5%, do you think that number is too high, too low, or just about right on Yu Darvish?
I think it's way too high, to be honest. In a matchup with Tampa, it's just such a tough spot for Darvish. I get it. It's in San Diego. I know he's talented, but we have him in the top pitchers to a 36% projected ownership, 9% chance of being a top 2 value, and 13% chance of being a top 2 overall pitcher. Just so much negative leverage there. And he is only 8,100, so I kind of get it. I understand the ownership, but I think I'd like to be underweight to the field here. How about you?
Yeah, when I was running my lineups through the Sims, really throughout the day, like even the content that I put out on Twitter, I'm fairly sure, if I remember off the top of my head, Yu Darvish was the pitcher I had I was the most underweight to. If not, he was like the second most. And that went for both DraftKings and FanDuel. And Yu Darvish is having a decent but not great season. 4.3 ERA, 3.55 expected ERA, 3.77 FIP. The one thing that has been a little bit of a trend the last couple of years, he's not exactly the same strikeout pitcher he was in the past. Peak Yu Darvish was a guy with a strikeout rate north of 30%. He was able to maintain low ERAs. He's been a little bit less efficient with his pitch counts the last couple of years, and his strikeout rates have gone down in addition to the walk rate going up. So he has a 7.8% walk rate this year. That is his highest since 2018. He's a 26.2% strikeout rate this year, 25.6% last year. So the two lowest marks of his career. You just get to a certain point in time where I think that at nearly 37 years of age, I think he turns 37 in a month or so, Yu Darvish, you just start to expect the pitchers are going to decline in some way. He's still good, but just not quite the pitcher he once was. And he's projected for a ton of ownership on a big slate with a lot of viable pitching options. Not anybody who you look at and be like, oh, that's a smash pitcher today, but a lot of viable pitching options. So I'm also going to be underweight to the field on Yu Darvish, a little bit too much ownership there, in my opinion. But let's look at the next tier of pitchers where we've got guys in the mid 20% range that are also pay up options. Your guy, Joe Ryan, 10,600 on DraftKings. He is projected for 29% ownership. And then Kevin Gausman at 11,200 is projected for 27% ownership. So these are the two most expensive pitchers on the slate. They're picking up some ownership. A great matchup for Joe Ryan, a little bit less so for Kevin Gausman. But what are you going to be doing with these two guys as expensive pitchers? One of these I'm overweight to. One of them I'm well underweight to. Would you like to take a guess at which is which?
I'm going to guess that you are overweight to Kevin Gausman, underweight to Joe Ryan.
Yeah, I think I've been overweight to Gausman in just about every single start this year. I also have bets on him to win the Cy Young. So just somebody who coming into the year, I've liked quite a bit. And there was a point in time where there were some concerns about Gausman when there was the sticky substance crackdown, where there was a really big dip in his spin rate. And I thought that was really concerning about his future, but he just kind of figured it out. And he's been able to maintain being a really good pitcher. So pulling up some of his numbers right here on the screen. And, I understand the matchup for him is far from ideal against the Texas Rangers, but his numbers are so good this year. He is an ace that I think is kind of flying under the radar. 3.12 ERA, 2.58 FIP this year. And then the strikeout rate too, 33.2%. This is an actual ace starting pitcher on a slate where we don't really have aces in the way that we normally think of them. So Gausman, it's not like it's any kind of crazy stand, but looking through the lineups that I have built here, Gausman's my most rostered starting pitcher. I have him in just over 30% of my lineup. So slightly overweight to Gausman. He is my most rostered pitcher today. So if I'm looking at somebody to pay up for, Gausman is my favorite overall option. Gausman, Joe Ryan. Do you like either of these pitchers, Neil, or are you going to be building your lineups elsewhere?
I do. I like both of these pitchers quite a bit. My instinct is to go to Joe Ryan, not just because he's a Twins pitcher, but he's also cheaper than Kevin Gausman, and he has the much better matchup with Detroit. But Gausman is so talented that, I think I'll probably end up overweight to both of these pitchers, to be honest. We've got Joe Ryan, 29% projected ownership, 17% chance of being a top two pitcher. So doesn't look incredible in the top pitchers tool. Gausman actually looks better in the top pitchers tool, which I don't know, maybe it shouldn't surprise me given how good he's been this year, but 27% ownership, 21% chance of being a top two pitcher. I like that. Even though there's a little bit of negative leverage, I don't care about that as much with pitchers. So yeah, my guess would be that I end up overweight to both. Not a sure thing, given that we do have Shane McClanahan and Zach Gallen both looking really good in the same price range as well, coming in at much lower ownership. So maybe I won't, but if these guys were getting 40% ownership, I'd want to come underweight to field. But I feel like the ownership is so reasonable on both Gausman and Joe Ryan that I'll probably end up overweight.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at our top pitchers tool for today, you got, like you said, Gausman's at the top, 20.9% chance to be the a top two scoring pitcher. Joe Ryan coming in at 16.5%. So I'm a little bit overweight to Gausman. He's my preferred option on the high end. But if you were going to pivot off of these guys, is there a low-owned option you like? Because we've got Shane McClanahan projected for 6% ownership, Zach Gallen at 5.5%, Michael Kopech is at 10.5%. So these guys who are a little bit less owned, you're getting them actually a lot less owned, as low as single digits on some of these guys. Do you like getting to any of them? Or is it just if you're paying up, you're going to be going to the Joe Ryans, Kevin Gausmans?
No, I love all these options. I mean, Zach Gallen looks phenomenal to me at 5.5% ownership, 14% chance of being a top two pitcher, facing Cleveland. Just looks great to me at 10,002. Also a little bit of a price discount from the top guys. Shane McClanahan, talented enough that, yeah, I'll probably take my shots on Shane McClanahan as well. 7% ownership, 15% chance of being a top 2 pitcher in San Diego. So a nice place to pitch. Not the best matchup, obviously, with the Padres, but the Padres haven't been great this year. They haven't really turned it on yet. So, it's probably pretty likely that this isn't going to be the game for them to turn it on, despite the talent. So, yeah, I like both Shane McClanahan and Zach Gallen quite a bit. The top pitchers tool loves them. I kind of follow the top pitchers tool a lot of the time. So, yeah, love both McClanahan and Gallen.
And there's only one other pitcher that's really picking up any kind of significant ownership today. And it is the pitcher who has the number 1 top value odds in our DraftKings top pitchers tool by a pretty wide margin. That is Bryan Woo. He is only $5,400, pretty decent matchup against the Chicago White Sox. What stands out the most is that $5,400 price tag, but a 26% chance to be one of the top 2 value pitchers on the slate. So we've got a pitcher here in Bryan Woo who we don't have that much data on. He's made 2 starts this year. They've both gone poorly. He's a 10.8 ERA, but it's only 6 innings pitched. He projects fairly decently the rest of the season in terms of models. And then also his minor league numbers indicate a pitcher who at least has a lot of strikeout upside. And that is one thing that we've seen as a positive for him in the big leagues, where Bryan Woo so far, let's see, what is it? Yeah, 33.3% strikeout rate. So once again, he's only pitched 6 2/3 innings. He's gotten his ass kicked. There's a lot of weirdness there. 526 BABIP. That's going to regress. The strikeout stuff is promising. 95.6 is average mile per hour on his fastball velocity. If you're going cheap at pitcher, I think it makes a whole lot of sense to go to Bryan Woo just for the strikeout upside. And like I said, in our top pitchers tool, the number 1 odds to be a top value pitcher on the slate. What are you going to be doing with him relative to his ownership, Neil?
My guess is I'll be overweight to the field on Bryan Woo as well. I already made my single entry team. I have Bryan Woo on that team. I have not run my 20 lineups from the generator, so I don't know how much Bryan Woo I'm going to get from the generator, but I think that, using my classic approach, I would probably end up overweight to the field on Bryan Woo. I still think I probably will, only an 8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, but at 5,400 and with the odds of being a top 2 value pitcher, the bats that he allows you to get up to, I like Bryan Woo quite a bit.
Yeah, I like Bryan Woo. We do have a question from Brandon Wagner who wants to know, am I going to be using Woo in my single entry stuff? I am not, because I think he's going to get steamed in single entry. I think this is a really difficult slate for single entry. Like yesterday, and I know people were making fun of me for it, but the way I play single entry, like the Tigers were just a really obvious stack for me yesterday in terms of they had really good leverage odds from a standpoint of they were cheap. They were in a matchup against Sonny Gray, who, while he's good, I was expecting to be massively popular in single entry. So I don't have a spot like that. Like my actual preferred slates for single entry are when I'm able to get leverage against a really chalky pitcher. And that's where I have the most success as well. It fails more often than it works, but the times it works, like I'm finishing at the top of those contests. I am not going to be playing Woo today. My current pitchers are unfortunately, well, I guess we'll say, I'll leave it as unfortunately, but Brady Singer and Rich Hill is who I have as my single entry combination right now. I think I'm going to stick with it. We'll see if something else changes in terms of lineups coming out, but I'm going chalky at offense and going really contrarian at pitcher in single entry today because I like the Braves and I think they're going to be super popular for single entry purposes, but I'm not going to be playing Woo just because of ownership concerns in single entry. If you look at the way that the slate is breaking out right now, we've got Yu Darvish projected for a bunch of ownership. Then it's like Joe Ryan, Kevin Gausman, Bryan Woo kind of grouped together. Here's what I think most single entry lineups are going to look like. I think it's going to be Yu Darvish, Bryan Woo, and then Braves or Angels stacks. So that's why I'm going to Singer to get a little bit of leverage off of the Angels. And that I think lets me comfortably get to the Braves without having any kind of real ownership concerns.
Yeah, I like that approach. As I said, I am playing Bryan Woo. Now you're making me kind of second guess myself, talking about how his ownership is probably going to be steamed up. And I think you're probably right. So now I don't really want to redo the whole thing. So I'll probably stick with it anyway. But I think you make a good point there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a big slate. Nearly every single team plays. So it's certainly possible that there's enough options that it keeps his ownership kind of modest. But a lot of times we see these kind of cheap pitchers when, by the way, he's like the only cheap pitcher that's really projected for a significant amount of ownership today. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he's 35-40% owned in single entry. And if that's what his ownership is, I just wouldn't have interest. By the way, Stuart Fairchild was just scratched from the Reds lineup. So if anybody has Red stacks or Stuart Fairchild, make sure you get him out of the lineups. But if you're going contrarian a pitcher and you're going cheap on DK, Neil, who would you go to outside of Brian Wu? He's the only one really projected for any kind of significant ownership. I think people might get a hint of what my answer is going to be in a second. But if you're playing somebody who is going to be a pivot off of Wu that's not getting all that much ownership, who are you leaning towards?
I think it'd probably be Jared Schuster. 1.5% projected ownership, 10% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, 5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. Great matchup with the Rockies outside of Coors. Obviously has boosted potential of getting the win with the Atlanta offense behind him. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anybody else who I like better, but yeah, I think it's probably Jared Schuster. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, it's going to be Brady Singer, and solely due to ownership here. He is projected for 1% ownership, right? Just 1% ownership on Singer. He's been absolute dog shit this year, but he has been decent in the past. And the Angels are currently projected to be the most popular team on DraftKings. So if I get a somewhat decent start out of Singer, which has not been the case this year, he's gotten absolutely annihilated. But last year, he had a 3.23 ERA and a 3.97 expected ERA. He had a 24.2% strikeout rate last year. So there is talent here. And he is still young as well, right? This is a 26-year-old pitcher. It's not like this guy is, super old and past it or anything like that. He's just having a terrible start this year in 13 outings. And by the way, there's nothing in his data other than what he's done in the past that suggests that he's been unlucky or anything like that this year. He has just simply sucked this season. But there is talent there. I think he's a chance to turn it around. He's only projected for 1% ownership. The Angels are the most popular offense on the slate on DraftKings, second most popular offense on FanDuel. So for large field tournament purposes, or even for single entry, where I think the Angels are going to be more popular, I think it makes sense to get to Brady Singer just for leverage purposes. So that's going to be my contrarian cheap pitching option.
He looks good in the top. I think you alluded to this, but he looks good in the top pitchers tool. Actually, he looks slightly better than Jared Schuster in the top pitchers tool. The only thing you don't like about Brady Singer is somewhat of a tough matchup with the Angels, but everything else, yeah, looks great.
Yeah, we got Devin Neiman in chat saying Royals fan here, and I can't click Singer. Yeah, I get it. It's kind of funny though, because baseball and so much of the way I build my lineups is based on ownership and based on what the field is doing. And there's just a certain point where it's like Singer's the least popular pitcher on the slate. The Angels are the most popular offense. It's not about what I expect them to do. If you ask me what's going to happen today, the Angels are going to score a bunch of runs on Brady Singer. But there's an ownership standpoint where, like, there has to be some ownership, even if you hate Brady Singer, that you would think that he's worthwhile. Like maybe the number's 0.1%. Maybe it's 0.2% for you. Maybe there's a spot too where it's like the Angels are 30% on. There's some sort of balance there where I think you have to consider these pitchers because there's a lot of variance in baseball and the ownership matters more than what the actual expected outcome is. And yeah, so for me, Brady Singer, particularly in large field tournaments or single entry is where I play Brady Singer. Stuff like the $4 20 max on DK, he'd be less appealing. But like the relay throw, single entry fields where I think you're going to get a lot of ownership on the Angels, that's where he makes some semblance of sense to me. Is there anything else at pitcher that stands out to you that's any kind of priority you think we should be talking about?
I think we've talked about the spots that I'm most interested in, those top 4, Gausman, Ryan, McClanahan, Gallen, and then Brian Wu, some of those couple cheap pivots. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else that I really want to talk about here. I don't really think there is. I think that's pretty much those are the pitchers that I'm the most interested in for sure. I mean, Sandy Alcantara, a little bit of positive leverage, 9.1% ownership, 9.3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, looks okay at Washington. Great matchup there, 9,100. You lose a little bit of, you save a little bit of salary over the Aces, so can make a case for Alcantara. But yeah, I think that we've covered them pretty well.
And if we're talking about the FanDuel slate, I don't think there's too much different to talk about. If you guys are playing cash games on FanDuel today, I do think you're going to Yu Darvish as your single entry pitcher. He's projected for 22.2% ownership. The next closest pitcher in terms of ownership is Kevin Gausman. Those are the only 2 pitchers that are picking up double-digit ownership on FanDuel. It is Darvish at 22%. Like I said, Gausman at 16%. Everything else there, pretty contrarian and spread out. So I would say cash games, Yu Darvish is your guy. Tournaments, I still like going to Kevin Gausman. But the interesting tournament pivot for me, and this is where the different salaries and everything matter for the 2 different sites, Joe Ryan only being 7% owned over on FanDuel. I think that's the place you want to get exposure to him in large field tournaments. Over on FanDuel, play Joe Ryan. Like I think Joe Ryan's a better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings just because of the difference in the ownership there. And then if you're going cheap, There's some guys that I think you can get to, like Tanner Houck is 1% owned. Rich Hill is 5%. Brady Singer, once again, 1% owned over on FanDuel. But generally, I don't feel like you have to get too crazy at pitching over on FanDuel. Anything else you want to bring up about the pitchers, Neil? If not, then it is time for us to build out some lineups in the MLB lineup generator.
Nice. Yeah, let's get to the lineup generator.
All right. Also, I want to shout out Danny Guzman. If you remember, Neil, yesterday when we were doing our So Rare show, Danny Guzman was in the chat. He was talking about how he signed up for the Sims lately, which there's a link to sign up for Sims below. We're going to talk about the lineup generator in a second, but want to make sure we also talk about our Sims because I'm using that every day. And in our Sims, Danny Guzman said that he won 10K the other day, came in second place on the FanDuel main slate. He was in first for 30K until Jake Berger hit a late homer and knocked him down a little bit. But before then, Danny Guzman was in first place, courtesy of the Sims. And he said now he was going to use some of that money to go buy some more So Rare cards. So Danny, nice. Congrats on that. If anybody else wants to sign up for the Sims, we've got a link for that below in the description box. And if you're newer to DFS, I think the tool you want to go with here is the MLB lineup generator. So I like now that we've really got different tiers of price points, tools, and data over at stokastic.com. And this is what I view as being the entry-level tool, right? And if you start to say like, hey, you want to play more than 10 or 20 lineups, then I think you can sign up for a Stokastic package, get access to all of our top stacks tool, MLB top pitchers tool, or projections or ownership projections. And then from there, if you're looking to really play big field tournaments, play 150 lineups, play some of the higher stake stuff, then you get to the MLB Sims. So I do like how we have this kind of in tiers and you can work your way up. But MLB lineup generator, this is the cheapest tool we have available on the site. It's still great. If you sign up for the first time using the link below, you could get access for less than $5. And I do think this is the easiest way for entry-level players to get familiar with MLB DFS. We'll start by building lineups on DraftKings here. We do it for both DraftKings and FanDuel. A big slate, so we'll go all stack types, Jordan, and then we'll make balanced lineups. Let's see what comes up here. Any guesses, Neil? Which teams are you going to guess?
It's going to be Atlanta. Tons of Atlanta would be my guess.
I tend to think that's true. So when I was running my lineups also through our Sims, I was getting to 24.7% Braves stacks is what I got to. Yeah. So I assume this is going to be a ton of Braves, and that is correct.
I was kind of cheating because I do a VOD, so I've already been through the lineup generator, and I know that I was like struggling to get away from Atlanta using lineup generator, so I kind of knew the answer.
Here we go. Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, Travis d'Arnaud, Michael Harris, Austin Riley, all picking up a whole bunch of exposure for us in the lineup generator. As a one-off, a good amount of Ohtani, although it looks like maybe we just have Angels as secondary stack. So there's Ohtani, Rengifo, Mickey Moniak. So a good amount of Angels exposure. And then a pitcher, we're getting to Kevin Gausman. We're getting to Yu Darvish, Brian Wu, JP France. So, a lot of Brave stacks, a lot of the pitchers there who are pretty popular. Yu Darvish, right around even with the field, no kind of real crazy stands at all. Keep scrolling down, Jordan. I want to see what other stacks we got to.
Can I say one more thing? Just because you were talking about Danny Guzman, it reminded me that this morning, Danny was trying to help somebody in chat, and then Stream Elements just like put him on 5-minute timeout for some reason, like out of nowhere. But part of that reminded me that at the same time, during that same conversation, somebody else in chat this morning, and I'm trying to remember what his name was. It was like something, I don't know, sounded almost sexual. But he took third using the simulator yesterday in the 60K to first for max contest. So that was cool to see. Somebody else, as we're talking about the Sims, had crushed just yesterday using the simulator as well.
Yeah, and by the way, we've got Steven Sand in the chat was asking, Sean V, are you good at MMA? Yeah, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. People don't know this, but Sean V is actually Khabib Nurmagomedov, trained by Sean V. He gets all this fighting. Like, Sean V kind of thought Khabib was an idiot. He's like, how come you're wrestling so much? Why aren't you striking more? But either way, Khabib came around, he saw Sean's way, and ended up becoming UFC champion. But yeah, Sean is quite good at everything. Tristan McKenzie, is that true?
Is it?
Tristan McKenzie scratched. Oh my God. All right. So this is going to make a pretty big difference. I'm curious to see who is starting in his place now. Also, let me look at some of the ownership. So the Arizona Diamondbacks, what is their pricing and ownership?
Touki Toussaint starting.
Who's starting?
Touki Toussaint.
Touki Toussaint. And he sucks. All right. This is kind of interesting. The ownership on the Diamondbacks, we've got, and this isn't going to change all that significantly, I don't think, Neil. people aren't going to all of a sudden like flock to stack the Arizona Diamondbacks because this news is broken all of a sudden.
You think people will flock to them?
No. They're not going. We got a pitcher scratch 16 minutes before lock.
Right.
I really like the Diamondbacks are now one of my favorite stacks on the entire slate. Like, I think this is something we definitely want to be getting to. And it's very rare that you get news that's kind of significant like this in baseball. But the change from Tristan McKenzie to Touki Toussaint at pitcher is very, very significant. So Touki Toussaint, I'm pulling up his stats right now. He hasn't made any big league starts this year. But last year, he had a 4.62 ERA. The year before, 4.5. The year before that, 8.8. So for his career, Touki Toussaint is a 5.34 ERA, a 5.29 FIP. We'll get back to building FanDuel lineups in the lineup generator in a second. But, not that often you get late-breaking news on MLB Live before lock that's this significant to the slate. How is this going to change how you view the Arizona Diamondbacks? Because you have a team that's outside of Ketel Marte and Corbin Carroll, they're pretty cheap. They're projected for almost no ownership, and they all of a sudden have one of the best matchups on the slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like them quite a bit. And like with MLB DFS, like people are really not going to react. Like NBA, to some extent, people are ready to react to late breaking news. MLB people, I mean, it also is not as significant for MLB generally, but yeah, in this case, when it's a clear boost to the bats and people are not going to react, I'm with you. I think it makes me like the Diamondbacks quite a bit.
Yeah, this is going to change my entire single entry lineup because I'm going to switch. We don't have the Diamondbacks lineup out yet, I don't think. Let me double check to make sure that's the case, but I'm pretty sure there's no Diamondbacks lineup. Yeah, no D-backs lineup quite yet. But yeah, I'm kind of inclined now to, this is how much things could change. I was playing the Braves as a stack and going really contrarian at pitcher. I think I'm more apt now to just stack the Diamondbacks in single entry and then just play like Yu Darvish and Woo at pitcher.
Yeah. Now I might change my, oh man, I hate changing my single entry team because it's like I actually know who I have and I'm going to know if what I would have had goes off. But I think that it's sound. Like that is the correct approach, is to actually change up the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, it's no different than, I mean, I'm not going to say no different, but it's the same sort of thought process as when you're playing NBA DFS and somebody gets scratched 15 minutes before lock. And then all of a sudden, there's a value play that stands out. And now you have to, go out and change where your lineups are based on the new value. This is the exact same sort of idea. We have a team that, like, let's see, what did I have? My ownership to the Diamondbacks. Yeah, I had 0.7% exposure to them as a stack before this. And now it's my favorite stack on the slate.
Yeah. I'm trying to, so
everything was one way and now it's another.
We don't have the lineup as the downside. I can't just figure out who's playing there.
We don't have the lineup, but not really the end of the world.
True.
All right, this is exciting. All right, gonna have to rebuild all my lineups in the background really quick here. In the meantime, let's go and pull up the FanDuel MLB lineup generator, Jordan. Let's build out some lineups for FanDuel. See what we can end up getting to over at FanDuel, see how much different it is than what we're getting to on DK. Now, obviously, with all of this said, we're not going to get into the Diamondbacks here, and I really like the Diamondbacks.
True.
Build balanced lineups, though, Jordan. Nick, because, oh my God, I really wanted to give Nick a shout out, but I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Nick C in the YouTube chat said, why not play the Cleveland, the crappy Cleveland pitcher and be the only one playing him? Mostly because he's really crappy. And also, let me see, is he even in the player pool? Touki Toussaint is in the player pool. I wasn't even sure if he would be. But Toussaint, oh, by the way, Toussaint is 8,000 over on FanDuel. Well, that's another reason to not play him. He's really expensive. What is he on ML? What is he on FanDuel? FanDuel, Touki Toussaint is not in the player pool. So another reason not play him. You don't play him on FanDuel because he isn't in the player pool. You don't play him on DraftKings because he's super expensive and terrible. Lineups we built out for FanDuel. Boy, if you thought we got to a lot of Braves exposure on DK, Neil, FanDuel, our most rostered players. Number 1 is Ozzie Albies. 2 is Austin Riley. 3 is Ronald Acuna. 4 is Mike Harris. 5 is Travis d'Arnaud. All of the Braves here. We're getting to a good amount of not a good amount of Gausman, but 24% at pitcher. And then we've got a pretty spread out beyond there. So this is, a lot of Braves stacks. Getting to Kevin Gausman. Marlins is a secondary stack. But so many Braves. Anything else that you're noticing here?
Yeah, I mean that is obviously the biggest standout there is the Braves. No real like pitcher getting a ton of ownership. Gausman the most at 24%, Darvish at 18%. Yeah, nothing really that noticeable to me. The Marlins, who there's been a lot of discussion about whether the Marlins are a good stack today, are showing up here in the lineup generator.
Yeah,
so not shocked there.
They were a secondary stack that I liked before, and now I'm just trying to build everything I'm doing around the around the Arizona Diamondbacks now. I think the Diamondbacks are the team to get to, and we'll look more at stacks in a second here. Just because we had to go on this little tangent with the starting pitching change for the against the Diamondbacks. Not going to be able to go and dig too deep into some of the top props for Sleeper, but they are sponsoring the show, and I want to shout out to Sleeper that if you guys sign up using the link we have below, you could get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. You also get payouts of up to 100x over at Sleeper. And if you guys ever want help trying to find props for these pick'em sites like Prize Picks and like Underdog, we do have our Pick'em Pro tool over at Stokastic you get access to for less than $5. So go ahead and go check out Sleeper though for sure, because they have a unique new pick'em site that is offering different stuff like a 100x payout that you're not going to find anywhere else. Let's talk about the top stacks now, Neil. And I don't know that we need to add too much else about the Diamondbacks. Both you and I have made it clear that this is a team that makes sense to pivot to now. But in terms of the popular stacks, the Atlanta Braves, the Los Angeles Angels, let's start by talking about the Braves because they were showing up in all of the lineups we're getting to in the MLB lineup generator. Relative to them being 10% owned on DraftKings, they're 16% on FanDuel. So we'll talk about them separately. But starting on DraftKings, as one of the most popular stacks on the slate, do you like being overweight to the field on the Braves or about even with the field or maybe even underweight?
Probably about even with the field. Adam and I talked about it a little bit this morning. Like they have positive leverage in the top stack school right now, 10.3% projected ownership, 11.5% chance to be in the top stack. But I do worry that the Braves are going to get like they did last night, just steamed up way more than we anticipate, just because they look so good with that 6.5 run implied total. Tough spot. Dinelson Lamet, not the best pitcher to be facing from the Rockies side. So I think I'm not going to be going overweight on the Braves, despite the fact that they do look good in the top stacks. So we actually have positive leverage here. How about you? How do you think you're approaching the Braves?
Yeah, so the Braves, I was getting to just a ton of them before. It's going to come down now just by the nature of there's this really low-owned team in the Arizona Diamondbacks that I really like getting to. But if I'm paying up for one of the chalky stacks, the Atlanta Braves, the Los Angeles Angels, I'm going to lean towards the Braves just based on the fact that they are about comparable in ownership, actually a little bit less for the Braves over on DraftKings, but you've got significantly better top stack odds for the Braves in our data. We've got the Braves, with 11.5% chance to be a top stack compared to just south of 8% for the Angels. So I think the Braves ownership is about appropriate to maybe a little bit too low, and the Angels a little bit too popular for me. I like coming in underweight to the field on the Angels.
Yeah, that sounds right. And you look at the top stack stool, bears out exactly what you're saying. Braves a little bit underowned, Angels a little bit overowned. So I think that's probably the right approach. I'm going to be close to the field on Atlanta, probably a little bit underweight to the field on the Angels.
All right, and now let's go and talk about it from a FanDuel perspective, because if you're looking at FanDuel purpose, the Atlanta Braves project for 16% ownership on FanDuel, unless it's been refreshed in the last minute or so. But yeah, Jordan, if you scroll down a little bit there, we had the Braves, 16.6% ownership. At that kind of number, it's a lot. And I was still getting to a bunch of them before, and I was just going really contrarian at pitcher. But I mean, 16.6%, that's so much for a team on a slate of this size that I'd rather be pivoting and going elsewhere for the Atlanta Braves. What do you make of them at 16.6% FanDuel ownership? It's a really big number, probably the biggest we've seen of the entire season on a slate of this size.
It's too much to me. I'm going to be underweight I'm not playing on FanDuel. I would certainly be underweight to the field on Atlanta. on FanDuel. Like some of the bats in particular, we're getting like 30% ownership. At least as of the last time I checked, we were getting to like LBs and Acuna. We're getting really, really high ownership. Austin Riley, I think, as well. Probably Matt Olson, although I don't remember exactly. So I think they're just getting those individual bats are getting too much ownership on FanDuel. I don't think I'd be likely to go there. You can obviously you can play them. You can play. They have some lower owned bats in the bottom of the order, and obviously you can mix in lower owned pitchers, lower owned secondary stack. So there are ways to get to them, but I suspect if I were playing on FanDuel, I would end up underweight to the Braves there. Do you think you would be underweight or overweight there?
So looking at by the way, I don't delete anybody's messages in chat. That was Neil who deleted the message. I don't delete anybody's messages about anything.
Who said I didn't? I missed whatever you're talking. But yeah, it was me. I blocked him on here. He came in and said this show sucks and Greg looks like a pedo. So
yeah, and I thought Reese. I was like, hey, yeah, man, that seems like
this seems cool. This is a good guy.
Yeah.
That's
like
fair.
I want to hang out with him. Seems like my people.
You think he's a kid?
Could be. A kid is into DFS. Send him our way. Reese knows exactly what he's talking about. Anyway, if we're getting back to talking about, what was the team you're asking me about?
The Braves on FanDuel. How do you want to be overweight or underweight there?
Yeah, so the only spot that I want to play the Braves is if I'm going really contrarian at pitcher. And now I think it just makes sense to just play as much of the Diamondbacks as possible. Like that's my focus right now. So much ownership going to the Braves. Where do we have the Diamondbacks? Do you scroll down a little bit here, Jordan? Diamondbacks projected ownership as a team on FanDuel, and then we'll look at them on DraftKings as well. So just scroll down a little bit. Or not. Uh-oh. Did Jordan die? This would be a terrible way to find out, wouldn't it? Could you scroll down on the screen so we could see the Diamondbacks projected ownership? Yeah, 1.1% for the Diamondbacks on FanDuel, or 1.3. And now let's check them on DraftKings as well. So over on DK, we have them projected for, it can't be much more than 1%. 3%? Okay, still a very low number for a team that's now in a really good spot. Give me the Diamondbacks. Yeah. What are the other teams you're prioritizing then, Neil? So if it's the Braves as being one team, the Angels looking a little bit overowned, I think we both like the Diamondbacks as a contrarian team. Are there any other teams that you're really gravitating towards?
Yeah, I like the Twins. Once again, look great. I got to move back to DraftKings, which is where I'm playing. But yeah, I do like the Twins again on this slate. They look great. A little bit of positive leverage there, 3.2% projected ownership, 4.5% chance to be in the top value stack on the board. I don't really love these like bullpen games where I think Tyler Alexander is just the opener, or I don't think they have like a starter who's going to be playing long innings. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't really love that about it. But I do think you can play both the righties and the lefties for the Twins, given who they're going to be facing from Detroit. I do like Philadelphia, even though they're in Oakland. I like the matchup with JP Sears, 4.6% chance to be in a top stack at 3.9% ownership. Looks pretty good there. So I think I would go to some Philly despite being in Oakland. There's a part of me that wants to stack up this Boston New York game just because there's always fireworks when Boston New York play each other. Not always, obviously, the projections would indicate that they're always going to go off against each other, but they sometimes have just games that go off for 25 runs. Wouldn't be shocking. So there is a part of me that wants to jam this Boston New York game and like game stack it a little bit, which I don't know, game stacking is not really a thing in MLB DFS, but there's a little bit of correlation, I think, just because you're less likely to see batters pulled. So some interest in both Boston and the Yankees and game stacking that one a little bit. Can always play some of Houston against Andrew Abbott, and what is this? It's like his fourth start or something like that. I don't know how long he's been in the league, but he doesn't have a ton of experience. Obviously a tough matchup going up against the Astros. So I do have a little bit of interest in the Astros here. Sort of interested in both Milwaukee and Pittsburgh. Game is in Milwaukee. The total for the game isn't particularly high, and neither look particularly great in the tools. But those were teams that I was considering for my single entry, both Milwaukee and Pittsburgh. I think that it's a fine spot for each. Yeah, I'd say those are the teams that I'm the most interested in. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, but once again, just really building primarily around the Arizona Diamondbacks. I do think that for contrarian purposes, it makes some sense to stack the White Sox if you want to be really different in large field tournaments, just considering you have a pitcher in Wu who's going to be really popular, but also, at least to this point, has not had a ton of success in the big leagues. And I do think that a 23-year-old prospect, somewhat of an unknown at this point, but does have a 10.8 ERA in the 2 starts he's made to this point, that stacking against him just for leverage purposes makes some sense in large field tournaments. But Diamondbacks are going to be my primary stack. We got a question here in Discord from Swanson79. He wants to know top single entry stack for DK, please. The answer now for me, in light of recent news, is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. Neil, if you were playing one lineup in single entry, who'd be the stack that you go towards to answer Swanson79's question?
Yeah, I do think that the Diamondbacks are a great answer there. Probably, if not the Diamondbacks, probably the Yankees. Probably the next I would be going to in single entry. Maybe the Phillies. I have the Twins currently in mind. I still might adjust it a little bit, but I think those are the 3 top that I would go to. The Diamondbacks. I guess those are 4. Diamondbacks, Yankees, Phillies, or Twins would be my most interest.
All right, let's see if we have any questions that are related to anything relevant in the YouTube chat. Not exactly. YouTube chat a little bit off the rails. We're going in all kinds of different directions for me. Hashtag Team Reese. That's where my allegiances lie, without a doubt. Going into the Discord channel to see if we have any questions in there, which we do not. Just the one from Swanson79. So let's finish with a couple of things, Neil. Contrarian stack you really like, and then we'll do some home run picks, and then we will wrap it up for the day. But if you were playing one contrarian stack today, is there any team that's projected for like 1-2% ownership that we've not gone over that you like in large field tournaments?
Yeah, I'm just going to steal yours right away. I'm going to take the Diamondbacks. I guess we got the Diamondbacks at 3% ownership, but they are fairly contrarian. If you wanted to say the Diamondbacks, I guess I could leave them for you, and then I would probably go to the Brewers. 2% projected ownership. They have 2.6% chance of being the top stack on the board. I know you shouldn't really factor this in, but I do like that they're facing Rich Hill, who pitched 119 times last time out. As I forget, SMP maybe pointed that out this morning. That is kind of interesting, and it's in Milwaukee. So a lot going on that I like for Milwaukee. So I'd say there's another pretty contrarian stack that I like.
Yeah, if I'm going to be going with a contrarian team we haven't brought up yet, the St. Louis Cardinals against Tyler McGill. McGill has really struggled this year, and I mean, doesn't get talked about because who the hell talks about Tyler McGill, but the Mets bullpen has also been a disaster. A lot of this to do with Edwin Diaz getting hurt in the offseason. But McGill so far this year, 5.14 ERA, 5.85 expected ERA, a little bit above league average, 11.9% home run to fly ball rate. And actually, he's always been a guy who gives up a higher than average home run to fly ball rate, 15.7%. He struggled a little bit last year as well with a 5.13 ERA. But considering the early struggles of Tyler McGill and the fact that people aren't really playing the Cardinals today, I think that's a stack that's going a little bit overlooked and makes sense as well. So give me some of the St. Louis Cardinals against Tyler McGill. I think that is a team to get overweight to. Now, some dong picks. By the way, YouTube chat, you could throw. Let's try to get YouTube chat on baseball somehow, if possible. YouTube, give us your home run pick today. Who do you guys want to go yard today? Give us some dong picks in there. Let's see if we can actually get them to talk about baseball. How about you, Neil? Who are you picking to hit a homer today?
Byron Buxton. That was my call this morning. I'm sticking with it.
All right. Neil going with a Minnesota Twin. No homerism there at all. For me, I'm going to go with Corbin Carroll. We're going to be picking on Touki Toussaint, who at one point I did see somebody in chat say that he was good with the Braves. He was expected to be good with the Braves, but he wasn't. He was shit with the Braves. So I'm going to go with Corbin Carroll going up against him. As for the home run picks in chat, we've got Manny Machado from Jake Swales. We've got Brandon Katz's dad is going with Mike Piazza. There's a good answer for sure. Mike Piazza, which by the way, always bet on the steroids. Mike Piazza, as everybody noted. Do you remember where the Mike Piazza steroid talk stemmed from?
I don't think so.
It was players talking about how he had back knee in the shower. And then all these rumors started swirling during the steroid era that he was taking, all the players were at that point in time. Anyway, Brandon Katz's dad has picked Mike Piazza. Flim Flam Man is going with Alejandro Kirk, I believe. We've got Cam Gallagher, Eloy Jimenez from Dylan R. Nate is going with Andrew Vaughn, Brian Reynolds from Almost Human. Sportswiz going with anybody who faces Neil. Always, hey, Neil gave up 25 runs last night.
Neil was a winning pitcher last night. I think you're missing the most important part here, Greg.
By the way, one of the reasons why the win stat is absolute terrible for baseball, Neil gave up 25 runs yesterday. It's like, hey, I got the win. There's never been somebody who's less participated in win. He's the equivalent of like DeAndre Jordan got an NBA championship ring earlier in the year.
Yeah, and he earned it. He played in the Timberwolves series. I remember it because I was there.
Yeah, he played 1 minute in garbage time, and that was enough for him to earn his World Series. His NBA championship ring. So Neil is like the DeAndre Jordan of his team. Corbin Carroll from Kevin O. Aggressive Goose is saying Paul Goldschmidt. And Ketel Marte from Ryan Rennebaum. There we go. All right, we got them talk. Jordan was skeptical. I could tell by the look on his face, but we got some baseball talk in there. People picking, and by the way, the best answer. Because I think every once in a while, I think we should give an award to chat for just poster of the day. Is that fair? Should we give? I'm
giving mine to Reese, of course.
It's tough for me. It's in between Reese, and then it's also in between. Who was the guy who was the one who said that whoever's facing you tonight? I have to find
Sportswiz. That was Sportswiz.
Sportswiz. I'm going to go with Sportswiz. Reese a close second because he also brought up some really good points in the YouTube chat, but I'm going with Sportswiz. YouTube commenter of the day, Sportswiz. I agree. Whoever Neil's going up against, hitting a home run. Guys, we are at lock. Thank you very much for watching. If you're not done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with all of your lineups tonight. Hope we all win some money. See you guys back here next week.